live. I'm not going to waste any time. So earlier this afternoon, uh, I did a live stream talking to you guys about the Trump hearing, the uh, the results of the Trump hearing yesterday. I was hearing about it last night, but because I was doing a live stream last night, completely unrelated to politics, talking about self defense and fitness, I didn't get a time to delve into the Trump hearing. And by the time I was done with the live stream, I went to, work out, eat, do some other stuff before I, wasted my time looking at political news. But I did get into it. And by earlier today, I got to, you know, digest more of what happened because usually the initial releases of something is going to be sensationalized and the news are going to just rush out to push out information and worry about accuracy later. So I like catching the news after it's no longer breaking news because breaking news tends to be not very accurate because they just want to be the first to push out information and accuracy is a afterthought. So once a day later has come about, you can get more accurate information. So I got to hear all the news about Trump being convicted on all 34 charges in the New York City trial, with the accusations about hush money and Stormy Daniels making some rather dubious claims about Trump assaulting her, a freaking porn star who had earlier, several years back, had said that it was completely consensual between her and Trump when she was on the Bill Maher show. But now is claiming that it was assault in this trial, which I think means she perjured herself. But so I talked about that earlier this afternoon. We did a live stream. You can catch that, which I uploaded earlier if you want to see it. But we talked about it, but at the time, I don't think too many people are going to be able to contribute to that conversation just because it was during the daytime. Most people are working. I work in lead generation and direct marketing, so Fridays are a short day for me. So I didn't have a problem, doing a live stream that earlier during the day. And usually I don't stay up this late. So we'll I wanted to get back into it because that stream was a little short because I lost connection and I couldn't see the rest of the chat, rest of the comments coming in through the thread on the live stream. So I just ended it and figured we'll just pick back up because I still want to talk about what do most people think about the aftermath of this hearing. I think it has the seeds of creating some political unrest since we know that his sentencing hearing is going to be July 11th. And then there's thought, will the judge actually have the balls to sentence a former president to jail? Um, and then there's people worrying like how, then there's people on the left, the Democratic side, who are gloating right now and pretty glib about the president taking an L with being convicted of felon, but it doesn't within U.S. constitutional law that does not prevent someone from running for president. He's still the Republican front runner. So trying to catch what people think about that. So I'm gonna dive into the comments. And of course, I know at this time of day, I'm gonna catch a lot of trolls. That's fine. They'll just get banned from the channel. But for folks who are appreciative of these streams, being able to talk about this stuff, if you like, please like the videos, um, subscribe if you like. um, you can hit the notifications and share the videos, stuff like that. And I've also talked quite a bit about my support of Trump in previous videos, so I I don't hide my biases. However, I still always put reason above everything else. So with that being said, I'm gonna go jump into into some of the comments I see. Malik Shabazz says, "When did you get out again, bro?" All right, so you said it before. I'm gonna just ban your stupid ass. Fuck off my channel, you fucking hotep. The Griffin says, "Hey man, what you been up to? What's up, Griffin?" Steak 25 says hello. So let's go, Brandon. Somebody gotta explain to me what that means. Like, I read about it a few years ago, and I still never got the joke. Um, I still don't get it. I mean, I know it's a joke against Joe Biden, but I don't get the Brandon part. Besides, anyway, I don't think it's even as funny. Like, the funniest political disses are the ones that Trump made, like calling that man Sleepy Joe. It's gotten to the point that people, both Republican and Democrat, have made fun of have made fun of Joe Biden, calling him Sleepy Joe. And then people on the left have given him more insults than people on the right have. They called him Genocide Joe, Jim Crow Joe, which I've also called him Crime Bill Joe. So he has plenty to go, and I'm sure there's going to be some other names he gets called. I like Jim Crow Joe. So, but I wish someone would explain the Let's Go Brandon, because I remember hearing the explanation of what the joke meant, but I still don't get it because it was a long time ago, so I don't remember. Um, AJ Martin says Diddy is behind me. No, that's your mother. Uh, Steak 25 Gaming said I want Trump to win. He's Stake 25. He can still run for election. Being a convicted felon doesn't stop you from running for office. We had someone, I keep forgetting who this candidate's name was, over like 60, 70 years ago. He ran for office from a jail cell. He didn't win, but he was still able to run. So the like I've pointed out in the previous live stream earlier this afternoon, I think that this conviction is going to be the is going to be the turning point in the election where we could actually see that Trump won, because it galvanized the base. I know there's tons of donations flowing into his campaign since last night. He post His son Donald Trump Jr. posted on Instagram with with his father. So Dixon Bud says base. JJ and Crazy Cousin says hi. What's up? Um, and like I said, guys, I predict there might be some civil unrest or political violence this coming summer, depending on how the sentencing goes. I don't know what the sentencing guidelines are for for the crimes of which he was convicted, nor do I know if there is if, because he's a former president, that those sentencing guidelines can even be applied to him in the same way they can be to the average citizen. Because again, because he's a former president, he still has Secret Service detail around him. I don't think that gets waived just because he gets convicted of a felony. I think you only get rid of your Secret Service detail if, one, that person signs off that they no longer want Secret Service detail, or it has to be like a crime of like something like something serious, like basically those sorts of crimes that would keep you from ever getting a passport. And it's only like two of those that I know, which is like international drug trafficking and basically like whatever the crime is for when you sell out your country. I forgot what that's called at the moment, but other than something like that, I can't see you losing your Secret Service detail. So Taper Tay says he won't be convicted until it goes to the appeal process. No, he was already convicted. In July, he gets sentencing. Yes, there's an appeal process. An appeal doesn't mean you weren't convicted. Appeal means you're appealing the conviction. You don't appeal charges, you appeal the conviction. So he was already appealed yesterday, Tapper Tay. Okay. yes, there's always the appellate process, but let's be let's be honest. Most of the times, the appellate process it, it's just, I mean, it's a formality, but rarely does it go through. In the case of the president, though, it may, because again, this is a more serious situation when you're talking about a former president convicted of felonies as opposed to the average citizen. Can it go to the up to the Supreme Court? It may, but you're talking about the appellate process. The appellate process is after someone has been convicted of a crime or crimes. That's not that's a I think you're confusing those two things, but I get what you're saying. But again, he's already been convicted. Like he faces sentencing on July 11th. And like I said, knowing how certain people think in certain sectors of the country, I already know that there's going to be an uptick in memberships in militias. There's going to be an increase in firearm purchases. So, if you own stock in some of the big um, arms weapon industry, like Northrop, I guess like Northrop Grumman and some others like that, um, might be a good time to put stock in some of those firms that uh, that make weapons. Just saying, consult your stockbroker. But no, in all seriousness, there's going to be a huge uptick in donations coming to this campaign. I believe there's going to be a higher drive in memberships within different state militias, and I think this can be a powder keg moment when we hit that sentencing date on July 11th. Depending on how that goes, there can be political violence. He says, I mean, it won't be upheld. You mean it'll be overturned? It's already once the conviction from the judge has happened, that conviction is already there. It can be overturned through the appellate process. But you make a good point that the appellate process might work its way all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. That that's very possible. That's very possible. God like says, yo, I'm back. What's the topic tonight? J.A.C says. So we're talking about Trump. The aftermath of the hearing yesterday. So, like I said, I think for the Democrats, this is going to be a Pyrrhic victory for them. I think them finally finding something to stick on Donald Trump to get him convicted and make him a convicted felon is going to come at too great a cost. The cost is going to be um, basically that they lose the election. They're going to galvanize. I think this has galvanized the Republican base like nothing else has in recent history, and you can see it all over the news. Like if you look at the news, depending on the political leanings, if you look at the news that have political leanings on the right, such as Fox News and what's the other one? One Media something. I can't remember the name, but if you look at all of those things, they are basically saying that the criminal justice system is illegitimate at this point and saying we're in a banana republic. They are highly upset while you see a bunch of political smugness and glib people on the left. And like I said, um, I think they're going to have their victory is going to be a Pyrrhic victory. I think it's going to come at the cost of them losing the election, or it's going to come at the cost of causing a lot of political violence. GJC says all this division in the state started with Trump. When he passes away, things will normalize. I'll say pass away because he'll never stop. No, it's not. That's not. He did not start this division. Not whatsoever. The pro. I mean, and there's a bunch of different places where you can say the origins have arisen with this division in the country, but you don't understand. I don't think you fundamentally understand the political division within the country since you're in Canada. That's why I like to have more people from the states jump into the convo. Um, this division basically starts because we're most of America, whether they're on the left or the right, are tired of the neoliberal establishment. Both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump back in 2016 represented populist candidates. And because they were populist candidates, they were hated by the corporate donor base of both the Democrats and Republicans. Before Trump won the Republican presidency back in 2016, a lot of the establishment Republicans hated him, but most of the people in the country who were Republicans loved him because he represented a sort of populism against the neoliberal establishment. Same with the Democrats. The the establishment Democrats wanted Hillary, but most people in the country loved Bernie because he represented a populist candidate who went against the neoliberal establishment. That's part of the division. The other part of the division is we have a two-party system that tries to cram a bunch of diverse views into two different parties. And we have a lot of social political issues here that are driving things. So, Aruba, what the fuck are you talking about? We're talking about Trump, so get the fuck off my channel. Dumbass mook. Anyway, um, we said we need better candidates all around. You get the candidates that you deserve. Like they said on the Dark Knight, um, Batman isn't the hero that Gotham wants, but it's the hero that Gotham deserves. Get the candidates that you deserve. If we had a more informed electorate, we would get better candidates. We have a stupid electorate, so we get mediocre candidates. That's it. If 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 the electorate really wants better candidates, they would make better choices. They would vote in their self-interest instead of voting against their self-interest just because of a name or because of a party ideology and so forth. We will have something closer to a newocracy, or rather an epistocracy, where most of the decisions, political decisions, the voting and stuff are done by people who are politically informed and not by morons. The reason we have such low voter turnout in this country as opposed to other countries is that people are dismayed that the average moron across the street has the same voting power as the person with the master's degree who knows political science. But aside from that, I think I think Trump is the superior candidate. I don't care about the criminal things, the so-called criminal things, because as far as I'm concerned, every president has probably been a criminal since the 1950s. Most of them engage in some sort of war crimes. Of that, I think Trump, within his 4 years, committed the least amount of war crimes as of any president. He didn't cause any new wars. He didn't do any secret drone strikes like Obama was doing. He wasn't the deporter in chief like Obama was. Unlike Bush, he didn't start a whole new department just to strengthen. Well, I don't want to get into all of Bush and Obama. We're going to keep it here on Trump. The point is, um, this the felony charges he got based on supposedly using hush money for an affair he had with a porn star who then lied and said that he assaulted her when she previously went on live TV, such as the Bill Maher show, and said it was perfectly consensual 4 years ago, kind of points to the fact that she was lying in court and would pretty much say anything to make the man look bad, including try to bring up very intimate details of their dalliance. Most presidents have most presidents have dalliances. I don't care about that. Most Americans don't care about presidents having dalliances. I'm here today because of our president having dalliance, Thomas Jefferson. So I don't care. People didn't care when um, Kennedy was having dalliances because pretty much all the women he was fucking were hot. Marilyn Monroe and all those other and all those other chicks. Clinton Clinton got impeached for his dalliance, which he probably wouldn't have if he wasn't fucking ugly women. Monica Lewinsky looks like a anyway. But yeah, I think the only reason Obama didn't have any dalliances is probably because he rides the rainbow. But whatever. God likes says, I have one question. When can I ask questions about the biggest online mystery? Please, I really like to talk about that. Not today. I don't know what you're talking about. If that doesn't have anything to do with Trump, that's gonna have to wait for another day. Because I really want to just stick to what's happened in the news yesterday and today. GJC's the string left versus right has spilled over to Canada. You keep saying spilling over. It's already existed there. It it it, it exists in all Western nations. It's just different. It's just in different forms. It exists in Canada. It exists in the UK. It exists in continental Europe. It exists in Japan. Like westernized nations, this is all symptomatic of you know contemporary contemporary politics, especially when you have like a two-party system. The UK is a little bit different with the parliamentary system, which I think has its both strengths and weaknesses over the two-party system. But at least it doesn't force a bunch of people with different divergent views into two categories. So GJC says we have Trudeau versus Pierre here now, and it's a lot like Trump versus Biden. Yeah, but which one is Trudeau? Because Trudeau seems a little bit more left than Biden, but he also seems like one of those liberal hypocrites as well. So I mean, he was caught doing blackface back in the day. Garlic says you're right, but not only Canada has spilled the whole world. I think that was my point. I was saying, well, I know I'm reading the comments a little bit late, but yeah, that was my whole point. I think I looked the problems of electoral politics is a contemporary problem in pretty much all Western nations. It's just manifested differently, but being that the U.S. is more or less the global power and sort of the staging ground for democracy in a modern world, everyone is going to have their eyes on what happens here. Master Buju says we need a third party. I mean, we do have third parties. Don't get me wrong. It's just that most of them aren't strong enough to do a strong showing in presidential elections. You see third parties on the local and congressional level, like Bernie, for instance, he is actually an independent. But when he ran as president, he switched over to Democrat because he knew that a third party candidate can't win in a presidential election. But as a senator, he's an independent. He's not a Democrat. Then you have people in Congress and in state and local elections who are libertarians, Green Party, Reform Party, right? Um, there's the Conservative Party, which is not the Republican Party, is something separate. So there's a bunch of third parties, but most of them don't have the numbers to make it into presidential elections. And it's been pretty close a few times. Like I said, you've had like Ralph Nader in the past. Everyone keeps trying to blame Ralph Nader for Al Gore losing to Bush back in 2000. When the truth of the matter is, if more people liked Gore, he would have got more votes. The people who voted for Ralph Nader, which I was one of those people who was going to vote for Ralph Nader, it was because they weren't satisfied with the other two choices. So the people who vote for the third parties are sometimes called spoiler votes, but they're not really spoiler votes because more than likely the people who voted for that third party candidate would have just sat out the election if they didn't have that choice to make. Um, J.A.C says, for the first time in my lifetime, I feel make Canada white again attitude in certain areas. If you see an upside down Canada flag on someone's car or house, that's like a Confederate flag now. Do they give up the maple syrup too? No, I'm joking. God like says over the whole world there's a democratic, but there's democracy, but still it always goes up one. Can't understand it. Like nature and then healthcare, while others go to outsiders and the prices like between and stuff. I don't exactly get that. BSK says so why Delaware so goddamn pathetic as to keep FJB on for 30 plus years. Galaxy is questioning what I'm missing, guys. Yeah, please try to like put it in a full sentence because I can't understand when I'm scrolling. I can't understand like what is in context towards. Um, is that Diane? I can't see. Hold up. All right, so I'm not squinting. I'm gonna just put on my glasses. Excuse me. Uh, Dina Darling says guilty. Yeah, so we know he's guilty. The point is that's not going to stop him from running in the election. The question is what happens now with sentencing Dina. Like convicted felons aren't prevented from running for president, and a lot of people are confused about that because they're saying, well, how is it that most convicted felons have a lot of freedoms taken from them? Excuse me, I need some water. So a lot of people I've seen complain, including some of my friends online, have been pondering like, well, convicted felons lose a lot of privileges, like they can't travel to some countries. Um, a lot of places they can't, in a lot of places they can't, get rent, uh, lose lose their voting privileges, all sorts of things like that. But they can still run for president. Isn't that a problem? I actually don't think it is. I think that was built into constitutional law for the very purpose that sometimes people might use the court system. I think the founding fathers were wise enough to know that it can be sometimes used that the court can sometimes be used politically against opponents. I think the founding fathers were smart enough to understand that, and that's why they made the exception that even with uh, felony with a person being a felon, they can still run for presidential office because obviously, if this person is so hideous, then the electoral process should stop them. So I could be wrong, but I did get an A in political science. GJC says I like Vivek Ramaswamy. Probably spelled that wrong. No, I think that is the right. I think that is the way he spells his name. I think you actually got that right. Master Buju says, "Can he still be a president if he now has felony?" Yes, that's what I was just saying. But you probably already heard me saying that before I got to your comment. But yeah, convicted felons can still run for office. There was actually, like I said, a guy who ran for office while in a jail cell. DJC says you can't be a Secret Service agent with a record, but you can run for president. Yeah, I mean, again, that's that is the political quagmire we have here, that people can run for political office with criminal backgrounds, but they can't qualify for most jobs, nor rent in many places, nor vote, nor travel to some countries with felonies. So, all right, some more homo stuff is gone. I realize that Pride Month is going to be upon us tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that it will be celebrated here on this channel. BSK says flag inverted ain't much. Um, BSK said Gore lost his home state. What is Gore's home state anyway? I don't remember. He was Gore was a senator in Delaware. Guessing you mean 1973, right? No, Gore's not that old, is he? Susan Ratland says lied. Who lied, Susan? It, um, GJC says house arrest wouldn't be fair to his wife. Well, according to some of the stuff that came out in a court hearing, they don't share a room with each other either. But I mean, the guy's marital problems are personal, so that's neither here nor there. But I, that's a possibility, house arrest. But I just can't fathom, because we had this debate earlier when I did a live stream earlier this afternoon about him getting jail time, and I was like, I just can't see it. And this guy was just saying, "Oh, you're just biased. He's gonna just be in a country club." And I was like, "You don't get it." I said, "You've never served in. I said, you never worked in corrections nor known anyone who's been in a correctional facility." I said, even at low level security facilities, that would be a threat on that man's life. He's a public figure. He's the highest of public figures, being a former president. Like, it would just be unprecedented to have him locked up in a prison. Whether I mean, because he definitely couldn't be within general population, and if he's not in general population, that means he's going to be in a jail cell 23 hours a day. And to treat a former president like that, I just don't see it. Plus, he still has to have his secret security detail unless he signs off that he no longer wants his security detail, which in no way he would do while being incarcerated. So I don't see there having repercussions of that sort for him going to jail. Plus, like I said, this isn't preventing him from carrying on his campaign. BSK says Second Amendment. Oh, there's gonna be a bunch of 2A bros. Like I said, right now it would be good for some folks to, like, maybe purchase stock in firms that make U.S. weaponry, because they will definitely be seeing an uptick in sales. Nick Gurr said, "What gang are you in?" Uh, the gang of your mother. Anyway, Master Buju says, "What if sentence day he has to go to jail for 4 years? What happens after that, hypothetically?" That's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's why we're discussing this today. That what is the aftermath? Like, would a judge really have the balls to sentence a former president to jail time of any amount of time, not just 4 years, 4 4 days? Like I, I don't see it. I just don't see it. Like it will cause civil unrest in America like we haven't seen since early times, since maybe since the depression. BSK says coal millionaire Gore, Tennessee. Oh yeah, he was from Tennessee. Okay. Ghost ABKC bully laughing. BSK. Yeah, they forget I'm Gen X, guys. Like they forget I have like a million ways to insult your mother before breakfast, so I'm just being nice. He said, just lit a cigar with a Belgian beer. Kids are down and a good political chat. Life is good. Master Boo just said this is going to be a very interesting election year. Yeah, I think this is going to be the most. This is going to be the most interesting election year since Gore versus Bush in 2000. Probably more so, because at least with that there was a fundamental like it was still a gentleman's election back in 2000. That, like I said, the all the controversy of the Gore versus Bush thing resulted in the hanging ballots in Florida, right? That was the big issue back then. Those were good times back in 2000 when that was like the most controversial thing that had happened in politics, is that we had a bunch of undecided votes because of one county, and Florida was still using an older way of counting ballots. So Bonnie Bell says Gen X here. What's up, Bonnie? Adarahim Nasiri is pointing and making monkey emojis. Um, Here's the thing. I don't know if you're joking about me, but being that I could go in on you, I would roast you right now because you're probably some little. Mm, let me stop. I'll give you, but I'll say this: you better chill. I'm gonna roast you on this motherfucker alive. But yeah, he was against coal. Wasn't Gore was like the big environmental president. Like he even had the big documentary called Inconvenient Truth. I'm trying to remember if I watched it. Then he had a sequel to it. Then they made fun of him on South Park. um, but yeah, no, someone asked me that earlier, Master Buju, if I saw the Civil War movie. I didn't want to see it just because it looked like they were trying too hard to be like current with the with a lot of the tensions right now in America. But the problem was the movie doesn't really make a stand on what caused the war and who was on the who was the more rational of the two sides. It's like they were trying to play the both sidism sort of thing, just to have a controversial movie. But to me, that's lame. Like if you're gonna make a movie on a civil war popping off in modern day America, then at least give us a reason for it and tell us which side is for what, instead of trying to play this both sidism sort of thing. Because it's weird in a movie to see like California forming a coalition with Texas. Like I, I would think they'd be at opposite ends. So if you're gonna see two unlikely states forming a political bond against other adversaries, I need to know why. Like the movie just seems like it doesn't seem like it's well thought out. Bonnie says, I'm amazed how our politicians have devolved. A lot of people say that, but it's not true. Like if you look, so I'm a bit of a history and politics nerd, right? So if you look at some of the elections that went on in the 1800s, that shit got dirty. Like like those candidates really got dirty. Even amongst friends, like when when John Adams ran against Thomas Jefferson, and these guys were friends. They became they became enemies for years because when they ran against each other, and this was when John Adams was running for re-election against Thomas Jefferson, and he lost. And actually, HBO did a whole series on John Adams, which was really good. If you guys haven't seen it, it's really good. It actually made me start liking John Adams, but they threw mud at each other like crazy. Like, best believe, like John Adams was pointing out that Thomas Jefferson had slaves and had an affair with all like it got dirty. Like I said, I'm related to Thomas Jefferson because of his affair with Sally Hemings. My my father's side of the family, uh, on my paternal grandmother's side, they still live in that part of Virginia where the Jefferson estate is. So they the 1800s was that was some dirty politics. Trust me, guys. Like what we're seeing today is just a reflection of what has been in American politics for a long time. It's just that we got so accustomed to more civil like behavior. I say starting from like the late 70s to up until like the 2000s, and then that went out of the window when Democrats tried to make it seem like every election was as existential crisis for America because they didn't have the better argument. So all they could sell people, they for one they kept black people voting Democrat because they try to convince them that all Republicans are basically white supremacists who want to put them back in bondage and have them back living under Jim Crow laws or whatever, which is far from the truth. Also, they they scared people into thinking that like if people didn't vote Democrat, then everything would devolve into like colonial times or whatever they wanted to scare people into, or they would tell people we would turn back into the 1950s as if the 1950s were so horrible. So, uh, BSK says multiple $1 million Cold Gore. I don't. You keep saying that, but I'm not sure he really made his. I mean, I could be wrong. You could be right. Maybe he did make his money off of coal, but I don't believe so. Maybe his family did, but I don't think Al Gore himself made his money off of the coal industry. As like I said, being an environmentalist, like that was something he was kind of against. I'm enjoying these glasses, by the way. These are my reading glasses. Um, and I guess you notice I don't have to really squint as much. Bonnie says Al Gore talking about climate change and the ozone layer, driving around in limousines. That's Bonnie. That's all of them. Like the look at the. He's not even the worst. The worst are the musicians, the celebrities talking about we need to do more for the environment, and they're in private jets. People like my wife's favorite celebrity, Taylor Swift, and some of these other people. But Al Gore had to ride around in those limousines because those are actually, I mean, those are actually for like presidents and very important dignitaries because those limousines are actually like they're kind of like they're sort of like tanks really, like they're completely like bulletproof and fireproof. They have weaponry and all sorts of stuff. I forgot what the term for those limousines. Someone in the comments might know the name of the special limousines that they use for presidents and dignitaries. But this that Secret Service detail that are assigned to presidents, the vehicles they ride in are heavily armored, so they're not just regular limousines. So that's for their protection, not really for his like luxury so much. Uh, Besides, no one in the Secret Service assigned to a presidential or dignitary detail would want that person to die under their duty. It would cause a huge like embarrassment to them and probably lose them from doing that detail again. BSK said they had duels. Yeah, like we had we had presidential candidates who had duels. That's what I'm saying. Like when people keep saying like politicians like politics has devolved. No, like I said, politics was really dirty in the 1800s, and if you're a history buff, you might be able to appreciate like how ironic that people think we're living in some really brutal times when some of these candidates were out here just talking about they're going to do a duel to the death and shit like that. Like that stuff was off the chains, and they threw mud at each other with no with without pulling any punches. They didn't care. And like I said, I remember the first nasty political election was John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson. That one got really bad, and and they didn't make amends with each other until I believe Jefferson was on his deathbed. Master Buddha says the country's more divided than ever. I mean, currently, I would have to agree. Eric Lapointe says, "Oh, we got the other Eric back. Okay, what's up? Trying to get all three Erics in the place at one time. I think it's only been one live stream where it was all three of you, Eric. I want five of you at one point. I want five to form like Voltron, but so far I can only get three of you. There's you, Eric the Guapo, and Eric Roca. So Al Gore takes jets. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, um, a lot of them are in like private jets and stuff like that. Now, like I said, I'm not going to hold that against a former president. Excuse me, a former president or dignitary, because those vehicles that they are assigned when they travel is actually part of their Secret Service detail. Those are armored vehicles. They're not they're not regular like privatized vehicles that celebrities take. Like these are actually armored vehicles. So whether you talk about Air Force One or Marine One, um, and some of these other vehicles, like these are heavily armored vehicles that is part of their detail that they do to keep these dignitaries and presidents safe. Masabuju says Nixon was rough. Yeah, that's when yeah, that was rough. Like I said, I think the era where we think of politics being civil started after Nixon with people like Jimmy Carter, and then with Ronald Reagan, and with George Bush Sr., and then with Bill Clinton, and then after that it started turning back into like how it was in the early 20th century. James says Guru said it best. They try to shape your thoughts like a sculpture. Talking about Guru, the rapper, right? Who passed away. One of my favorite rappers of the 90s. And BSK said Nixon looked rough. Maurice Martin said they lied to us with a straight face. Champagne Damsel, BBL Drizzy. Hope you're not talking about me. um, Bonnie says, I know, just wasn't an Al Gore fan. No, no, I get you. I wasn't either. Like I did see him speak at my campus back in 2000. I was just interested in his views, but I wasn't really a fan at the time. I was actually I actually supported Nader back then. And then they tried to make it like Gore was the reason that I'm sorry, they tried to make it like Nader was the reason that Gore lost, as if it wasn't just because Gore wasn't very popular. I remember the black attorney, I think his name is Randall Robertson. He said he couldn't stand how Al Gore just walked around into like around black voters and didn't promise them anything and just had this little glib persona, like he just knew that he was getting the black vote automatically, like Biden and like a lot of these Democrats, which is why I can't vote Democrat anymore because they don't take the black vote seriously. And once Trump wins this election, I'm waiting for all the black Democratic leaders to try to blame black men for Biden losing. I would gladly take the W on that and be like, yeah, we did. because you guys didn't take us seriously. Although the truth of the matter is that our numbers weren't enough to tank the election for him. The it would be that half of the people that vote blue just rejected him or sat out the election completely on the couch. J.A.C says make Gore a bulletproof Prius. Shit, they should already be. They look like shit. But anyway, um, Rick and Morty, if you don't give a crap, then bounce your ass off my motherfucking channel. Punk. J.A.C says Biden would definitely lose a duel. Imagine his reaction timing. The funny thing is, we've seen his mental decline in real time because if you remember, like, just like, I'm gonna say like 8 years ago, he was he was still pretty feisty for his age. Like, I mean, he's like 81 now. Going into the election in November, he will be 82 years old. But say like 80 years ago, he was talking he was talking he was talking a he was talking mad junk back then. He was saying, "I'll go take Trump behind the bleachers." And we was like, whoa, 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 hold up, no Diddy here. Like, what you talking about? Take that man behind the bleachers. You only do two things. I'm Gen X. There's only two things you did behind the bleachers. You either got into a fight or you did the other F. And I don't know. But yeah, nowadays, nah. Yeah, I mean, he can't even walk up the steps without tripping. So he would literally have to have the security, his Secret Service holding his fist up while he throws a right cross. Maurice Martin says, "What do you think they are moving us towards with all these shenanigans?" I I, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what's going to be the aftermath of this. Like I said, I think what's going to be pertinent now is how the sentencing goes down. I think depending on the sentencing, and I'm pretty sure the judge already has this in the back of his mind, that how severe he sentences this former president can determine the like the political atmosphere of the nation. Because if he tries to make a quote unquote example of Trump, he's going to have half the country ready to go up in arms. And that's not even an exaggeration. Will all of them actually go up in arms? No, but if just enough do it, it will cause a panic. BSK says term limits, son. I mean, there are term limits. Like, the president can only run twice. However, I don't know if you are a former president, then you lose the election, then you run for election again. If that means that you can only serve that other 4 more years, I don't know. DJC says, "Where did you go to school?" University of Maryland. If you guys see up there. So, um, Gael Hernandez says Denzel Washington. I wish. um, Bonnie says I liked Ronald Reagan growing up during his administration was nice, though the contra gives me pause. Yeah, but I wasn't even really cognizant of the contra until the '90s, like the early '90s, because I was a kid in the '80s, so politics had no like I didn't know anything about politics in the '80s other than when they mentioned it maybe on a TV sitcom, something about Ronald Reagan and stuff like that. Or a musician may have said something in passing about Ronald Reagan, but I didn't know whether he was a good person or a bad person. I knew that he had Michael Jackson at the White House. I knew that he showed up in some TV shows that I watched. Um, I knew that a lot of older people didn't like him, but I didn't know anything else about politics. I went to a presidential rally when I was a little kid, though. The first presidential political rally I went to in the early '80s as a little kid was Jesse Jackson, and I remember being there with my mom, and this white guy lifted me up and put me on his shoulder so that I could see Jesse Jackson speak. So, Master Buju says, "Do you think there would be chaos if Biden wins hypothetically?" Oh yes, definitely so, because there's going to be a lot of people saying the only way he could have won was was through using was by influencing the court system to um, come after Trump. And some people already believe that. Like, I've already seen on Fox News people showing a clip of a reporter asking, Biden if the court if the recent court trial for Trump made it easier for him to win the election, and he just looked back and smiled, and that rubbed all people that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Eric Lapointe says just disappointed. AC says Gus Fring. I guess you're talking about the guy from um, um, that whatever that AMC show is. I didn't watch it. I didn't want to watch a show about a teacher turning into a drug dealer. But anyway, J.A.C says the fact that he would actually win a civil war if he loses hard to support someone like that. I don't think he does. I think if you're referring to Trump, I don't think he wants a civil war. I think rather he's saying that he knows that his supporters will want to go up in arms because they feel cheated. The their a person's candidate that they favor is sort of like a representation of who they are as a person or their way of life. So when someone sees their political candidate being unfairly treated, they take it as a personal attack towards themselves. I don't think that he would personally want them to make war upon the nation if he loses. But I think you know, I think most presidential candidates have a bit of narcissism in them. I think he would appreciate it because, but I don't think he would go out and say go make war if I lose his election. I think he just understands that that's how people would feel and think about the situation. Jay says, "What up? What's up, Jay?" Regular Point says, "Well, he was an actor, right? Ronald Reagan, right? No, I mean, yeah, I meant like he did some guest appearances in the '80s on some shows. He and Nancy Reagan, at least in the first part of his years, in his latter years, that's when he started suffering dementia, and Nancy was making a lot of the decision making, so you didn't really see him out in public as much as you saw him in his the first 4 years of the Ronald Reagan administration. But BSK says Scott is 20, Congress 24, governor 12 years, term limits. I think that's too long, really. 24 years. That's an entire life sentence to let someone run to be in Congress for 24 years. I say give them one term. I say Supreme Court give them like one term of like I don't know 10 years. Give Congress one term of 8 years for senator, 1 year of 6 years for House of Representatives, governor, one term of 6 years, president, one term of 8 years. I don't know. Yeah, Breaking Bad. Like I just didn't. I wasn't a fan of the show. I tried to. I know some people tried to get me to watch it, but I don't think I look like Giancarlo Esposito, who's an awesome actor, by the way. And if you guys don't know, he's half Italian. Would explain his name, right? Giancarlo Esposito. But yeah, he's actually half Italian, and he's playing a supervillain in the new Captain America movie, but they haven't discussed who he's going to be. there's some murmurings that he could be Doctor Doom or someone else. I don't know, but I'll get back to the subject. uh, Vent Powell says, with all the supposed support, there was there was not one out of 12 that would find him not guilty. Exactly, like so. That was another complaint that the jurors that they, that his the jurors didn't really represent a divert like a well diverse electoral base of people because I'm still astounded that he got convicted on all 34 charges. Like I don't think it comes to anyone's surprise that he would got might have got convicted of some of them, but 34 charges, all of them, especially when we know that one of the complainants, um, Stormy Daniels, is not a credible witness. We know that the other person who talked against him, Michael Cohen, has already been convicted of crimes and has been deemed dishonest himself. So that to me in itself raises reasonable doubt. So that's what I'm saying. I don't see it. That was the shock that he got caught, found, excuse me, found guilty on all 34 charges. Like you said, Vent, like I, I don't know what the how that went down in the jury, but I have read that the way they did the jury was that they didn't have to reach unanimous decision on these on these charges. So I don't know how true that was, but they were saying that was one of the travesties is that they didn't have to reach unanimous decision to find him guilty on all those different charges. GJC says, "Have you ever watched The Comey Rule? Recommended if you haven't. I haven't heard of it. Is it a legal drama?" Eric Lapointe says, "Interesting. I didn't know that about Ronald." Yeah. So you didn't know he was suffering dementia later on in life? Like that. I thought that was pretty well known. Like that they actually had Nancy was actually making decisions for him in office because he was suffering dementia, but they withheld that from the public until like years after he was out of office. Then that became known to the public, but that was something that they did not let the public know about at the time that he was actually suffering mental decline while in office, and people are scared that this is going to be what happens with if Biden serves a second term. That it's going to be the same thing with him. And mind you, Biden is much older than Ronald Reagan was when he served his second term. Biden and Bill Clinton are about the same age, and Bill Clinton served as president 30 years ago. Not to mention, Biden ran for office back in 1988. The reason his campaign got shuttered back in 1988 because it was discovered that he had lied about his educational background and plagiarized some stuff while he was in law school and some other issues. But but Biden has literally been running for office since the 80s. Tracy says, Eric Lapointe, how are you guys? The other two Erics in here. No, Tracy, that's what I was saying. Like I wanted all three of them in here. Like I've only had all three of them in the live stream like twice. All right, so we got another mental health midget in here. Get rid of this guy. Uh, GJC says you look like Isaiah Washington with those glasses. Face. Marijuana says Gustavo Fring. Do I really like Gustavo? At least I don't hear anyone saying Don Cheadle today, because usually everyone is saying Don Cheadle, but it must be because of the glasses. Like when I don't have the glasses, I'm constantly people are constantly saying I look like Don Cheadle, but um, I guess I look like Gus with these on. I'll take it because, like I said, Giancarlo Esposito was I'm not I'm not with the rainbow, but he was a fly dude early on. Like the first time I seen him was like in School Days, and he was the president of the fraternity that Spike Lee's character was wanting to join on this um, black college. And if you guys haven't seen School Days, it's a classic. If you ever joined a Black Greek lettered organization, one of the requirements was that you had to watch School Days. um, they was like, you need to watch School Days and you need to read this book. There was the book of the Divine Nine, which stood for the nine different Black Greek letter organizations, the fraternities and sororities. So those were like two required things: watch School Days and read the book of the Divine Nine. Tracy says jury instructions were only four people. Only four? Mm. Vince says 12 people said guilty. It had to be unanimous. Um, so yeah, but like I was saying, I'm not sure if they were saying this is the thing I saw earlier, and like I said, I don't know how correct this was because when the news comes out early, it's not always accurate, right? But they were saying that it was unprecedented the way the jury went because they didn't have to reach unanimous decision on each charge. So I'm not sure if what they were saying was that they didn't have to all vote guilty on each charge, or the other thing that I was hearing the another news reporter saying was that they didn't have to agree that on whether that charge actually they they even though they may have all voted unanimously on each charge, that they didn't have to all agree that each charge was a crime or so I don't get the nuance in that, but if that's true, and if this is something that's not usually had in the jury selection, we'll see. Which is funny because, like I said, I've just been selected for for jury duty. When I looked at my news, when I picked up my mail yesterday, but I can get out of that. But I'm almost tempted to do it though. Marie says, when you see these folks in power so long, who's to say they can't be corrupted? They need their term shortened. Makes the world shapers' job harder to find corrupt lawmakers. But here's the thing: I don't think they go. I'm a cynic, right? So I don't think people go into office and get corrupted. I think corrupted people go into office. Like I said, it takes a bit of narcissism for people to run for public office in the first place. That and money. And I think so. You're already dealing with a certain personality types who think that they are fit to run for public office and can make decisions for the rest of people around them. Um, and politics is always kind of um, ensnared certain personalities, people who might already, like I said, I don't think people go into office and become corrupt. I think people who are already corrupt tend to like running for office. That's my take on it. So Marie says, "Damn, I'm old." Bonnie says, "I'm not an Alex Jones fan, but the judicial system did the same thing to him in Texas." Yeah, so like I was saying in my earlier live stream this afternoon, I think the problem is there's been serious issues with the American justice system for a long time, but it's only apparent to everyone when it hits someone of the elite because we have a two-tiered justice system. All the inequities in the system usually fall onto the folks in one tier of the system who tend to be poor and tend to be minorities. So that's sort of filtered out in the other tier for those of the elite and wealthy. But when those when those same inequities hit those in this other space, those of the elite, that's when it becomes more widespread and becomes more attention grabbing. Like the fact that you can have a person who's a multi-billionaire, former president, face a trial where it just seemed honestly a little. I won't say rigged, but it seemed kind of unfair. Like it's like what hope is there for the average person if a man who's a literal former president and a multi-billionaire can't get a good shake, right? So I think these problems in the legal system have always been there. It's just that it's not a it hasn't it's not apparent to people until it attacks them personally, or they see it happening to the elite. Like, damn, even that can happen to him, so we've known that we have a huge problem with how prosecution goes in this country, but it's only apparent when it happens to someone of huge import. TRW says, "Yo, you missed my question. I didn't see it, sir. Um, it could be I didn't see any question. I'm sorry. If you want to re-ask it, that's fine. Because I didn't see any question when I was scrolling the comments. Um, I'm looking currently. So yeah, if you just want to restate your question, I didn't see what you said. Tracy says the glasses for the Gus Fring thing. Well, they're helping me see the comments better, so I'm gonna just keep them on for the rest of the stream. GJC says now I can't unsee Don Cheadle. Again, I don't see the Don Cheadle thing. I literally think that's only something that non-black people see. Um, Official Red Skittle said, "What's up, Unc?" Tracy said he was in Last Holiday with Queen Latifah. Last Holiday, no, Last Holiday. That was LL Cool J, wasn't it? Last. So I only watched that movie once. I don't know why I watched it at all because it was horrible. But yeah, I remember Last Holiday that she co-starred with LL Cool J, unless Don Cheadle was also in that movie. Tracy says Juan M. Merchant told the jury in former President Donald Trump's hush money trial that they don't need a unanimous verdict to convict Trump. Okay, so okay, so I didn't misinterpret what I saw earlier. Thank you, Tracy. And that's why I saw a lot of people um, on the Republican side saying, "What the hell?" They was like, "That's not." They was like, "How is that even fair?" And that's when I started, and I think that must have been a catalyst for everyone on Fox News and everywhere else saying that this is a banana republic. It must have been that, Tracy. Thank you. Um, Firemaker 5284 said, "What's the best advice to me as a freshman going into sophomore?" That's not really relevant here, Firemaker. Plus, I don't know what your major is. But even though that has nothing to do with this conversation, if you can make that a more specific question, I will answer it. Because I have done a whole live stream talking to college bound students on advice about majors and stuff like that. So Eric says I'm hitting the hay. Good night, everyone. Good night, Eric. Thanks for contributing. I was hoping to have all three of you today. Tracy says the four-part may be wrong, but the article was removed, so I might be wrong. Okay. Um, GJC says Trudeau's going on his 10th year as prime minister here. Way too long. I like 4 years term better. Well, I don't know how prime ministry works as opposed to presidential elections because, as far as I know, the nominal head of Canada is still the king of England, right? Just like with other British Commonwealth nations. BSK says, imagine 34 bales of weed. One dude can be charged per bale, stack charges. I don't get that. Um, but yeah. If I missed anyone's questions, like TRW, if you want to re-ask it, go ahead, and I'll get to your question. But I didn't see it earlier when I was scrolling, and I even scrolled back up to see if I had missed it, and I still didn't see it. It's possible that it didn't post. So that's a possibility that I didn't see it post. but I'll look again since I don't see any new comments just yet. Um, yeah, I don't see it. Patchy06 says hi. What's up, Patchy? And also Firemaker 5284. Like I said, if you want to like I did see your question, but it's a little too vague, so I don't know what you're actually asking me. But if you wanted to make it in a more, if you can ask it in a more specific form, that I can answer that question for you better. Because you're saying, what's the best advice to me as a freshman going into sophomore year? That would kind of deal with where you're going to college, what is your major, like what are your ambitions after you graduate from college? Are you planning on to going to grad school? Do you want to enter the workforce? Um, those sorts of things. Also, if you're looking to go into the workforce, I will one general thing I can tell you, which I did say also in my live stream that I gave for college bound kids 2 weeks ago, for when I told them regardless of major, this is one thing pretty much all of you should be doing. You guys should be looking for internships, particularly unpaid internships, because the unpaid internships tend to be the best ones to find that'll lead you actually into a a lucrative job or working for a prestigious firm of some sort when you come out of college. Those internships are very important. They weren't as important when I went into college, but even then they were pushing them. And now I think it's sort of a requirement in other parts of the world. The internship is actually part of their education. Like it's part of like the internship is something they actually have to do to graduate and to complete their degree. Is after they finish off that coursework, they do an internship. But here in America, that's not the case. What they do instead is let people know that they should be doing that in order to find a lucrative job once they come out of undergrad. Otherwise, you should be focused. So, in, if you're planning on going into the workforce directly after you graduate um, college, you should be looking right now, becoming as you're becoming a sophomore. This I guess this coming fall, you should be looking for unpaid internships that directly deal with your major. That would be my advice, unless you have something more specific to ask me. Eric Eric the Guapo is here. What's up, Eric? You just came in after Eric Lapointe just left. He Patchy says, "Are we discussing the Trump judgment?" Yes, yes, we are. If so, what is your stance? Just trying to catch up. So my stance is that I think this is a potential powder keg moment in American politics, depending on how the sentencing goes this July 11th. Because if they try to make an example of that man, I think it can create civil unrest and political violence. I think already after yesterday's events, where he's been convicted on all charges, that we're already seeing that it's galvanized his base. He's been receiving a lot of donations to his campaign, and I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that there's been a uptick in membership in militias across the country, and I'm pretty sure that weapon sales will be going up as well. And I told people they might want to if buy some stock or increase the amount of money they have in stock in firms that sell weaponry. That that's where we're at right now. And I was saying I'm not sure what the aftermath is going to be because I don't know the sentencing guidelines. Let me get some water, guys. But yeah, I don't know the sentencing guidelines, and I don't know if the sentencing guidelines will even be applicable to a former president who's a current front runner in the presidential election. Um, Kelly says, "You look like the doctor from Grey's Anatomy first season." Thank you. Yeah, I think you're talking about Isaiah Washington, right? Thanks, Kelly. I'll take that as a compliment. Eric DeGuapo says, "Best advice for college: don't get brainwashed with gender or racial ideology. Get a degree that you can monetize." I kind of disagree. I get what you're saying, but I kind of disagree. Not on the gender, racial ideology, brainwashing stuff. I get that. My thing is, I think people should take. I don't. I think it's wrong-headed when people say that the only worthwhile degrees are STEM degrees, only because college is supposed to be higher education, but the way it's treated now is people treat it like it's a trade school. Like if you're gonna go to, if you want to get a highly technical type job, just go directly to trade school. Don't go to college. College shouldn't just be about learning a trade. It's supposed to be about higher education, which is why, at least in the American collegiate system, you have to have, get a bunch of take a bunch of classes outside of your major so that you can be a so-called well-rounded student. And taking electives are good because they let you explore different things that you might not have done. Sometimes your major might be already been decided by your parents. Like your parents say, if I'm paying for your education, you can only do this, that, or the other as a major. So there's that. But I think regardless of the major that you choose, whether it's a so-called BS major or not, is that the important thing is the only way that you're going to capitalize on it without going on to graduate school, and I would still recommend graduate school, is that you have to do unpaid internships as an undergrad to be able to really find any sort of lucrative job with your major. That was my ultimate advice, um, to to the young guy or young lady. I'm not sure which, but FireMaker 5284. If they're still here in the stream to see what I said. Eric, I was us Eric's on the rotation, right? Because you might dip out, and then we're gonna see Eric Roca come in. I'm still waiting for there to be five. There need to be five of you guys. TRW says Kennedy Oswald conspiracy. Oh, was that the question? That's beyond my pay grade, sir. I really don't know. What I will say is the explanation of how Kennedy died. If you're talking about the assassination, I mean, it's I can't like I even though that it's been over 50 years now, so they can release that information, they still decided not to, and at least two or three presidents since have claimed that they were going to release all the all the redacted classified information surrounding his assassination. They still haven't, so we don't really know yet. But can Oswald have been a lone wolf who killed Kennedy? Yeah, which is why like Secret Service detail now is completely different than it was back in 1963 or whenever when the guy died, right? Because because of because of that. This is why like when the person earlier was talking about Al Gore riding around in limousines, although he claims he's an environmentalist, I was saying I don't think that's really a contradiction because those limousines that are used for presidents and very important political dignitaries is actually a well armored vehicle. It's not a regular limousine. It's more like a freaking tank. It's based those so-called limousines the presidents ride in are really tanks that are designed to look like limousines. So it's not really a contradiction. It's for the president's security or former president's security that they still ride around in those things. It's not a matter of luxury. But conspiracy, I can't say. Is I literally read a high school history textbook where the author or authors have made have suggested they don't buy the common explanation, but I think that was more that author's subjective opinion on the matter than a matter of something that was then more of an evidential claim. So I can't I don't know to be honest. Like I said, that's way beyond my pay grade. I would like to know. And I think the American people deserve to know the truth of that, especially since that stuff is no longer should no longer be considered classified, and all that redacted information should be released. But the re the reason I heard back like 10, 20 years ago that they didn't release that information about Kennedy's assassinations, that they said that some of these people involved in those things are still alive, and it, it could still pose a threat to them, to those people still living from that era. So Patchy says, I agree, it very well could be a powder keg. Yeah, it could be. Alice says, I don't care. Well, GJC says people are getting priced out of college and the younger generation is finding a way through careers without it. Some companies offer whatever courses or licensing you need. Yeah, but again, I'm a statistical nerd. The statistics are people who with a degree on average are going to make more than people without degrees. Will there be people who can make just as much money going through trade school or other things? Yeah, but we also know that a lot of these people who don't have to go to college and stuff also have more come from families with more resources than others. Um, college is college has been of two things historically. One has been a plaything of the privileged because in early times pretty much only the privileged got to go to college, and it wasn't because of the price. It was because most people weren't able to go on to college. They needed to work right out of high school to take care of themselves and their families. But also it was also a entry into the middle class for a lot of the lower class people, and it still is. It used to be called, the professional managerial class, like getting your that degree, that piece of paper was basically your key to entering the professional managerial class for a long time. And like I say, even still, when you look statistically, people who hold college degrees on average make more than those who don't, and those with graduate degrees on average make more than people who only have 4 year degrees. So it's still a very important thing to do for younger persons, who cares about their career. Um, like I said, there are other ways, trade school or anything like that, but a lot of people who've been talked out of college, I disagree with. I like that's one of the big rants I did previously in a video, was talking about how these red pill and manosphere people are trying to talk young men out of going to college simply because they find it too effeminate or too liberal, and and the answer to either college becoming too liberal or too feminized is not to leave those establishments, but to increase male and conservative participation in those higher education spaces to keep it balanced. Besides that, they're disadvantaging themselves financially by not taking advantage of higher education. And like I said, a lot of very high up conservatives come from higher education, even if they may not act like it. Like Ted Cruz is an Ivy League brat, even though he may not act like it. A lot of people are you know, tease George Bush for being stupid, but he's a Yale, he's a Yale graduate with an MBA. They, kind of they kind of even mocked that when he was a president, saying he was the first MBA president. But he is very smart. Both, and they tried to say that when he was going against John Kerry in the election back in 2004, people tried to mock Bush for being stupid and Kerry for being smart. But when they ran through their GPA, they found they were both C average students. They both joined the same fraternal organization, the Skull and Bones Society. So they had more likenesses than differences, but the media played that up and you know made them seem like they were wholly different people when they really weren't. Was Bush less articulate? Sure, but he also admitted later on, many years after being out of office, that he sometimes exaggerated being inarticulate just to make himself more relatable to the common person, instead of speaking in a very pretentious way that a person who graduated from Yale might talk. He purposely dumbed himself down and used what he called Bushisms to make himself more relatable to the common man, and it worked, which shows just how smart he actually is. Anyway, Eric DeGuapo says, I respectfully disagree. The days of going to college just for knowledge is over. Tuition is way too expensive to fumble around, get some garbage degree. You can't get a job and be in 50K. So I I understand, but this the detail is in the nuances. So it depends on what you get a degree in. Like that's why most people push STEM degrees, right? And we're getting way off topic, but here we go. So it that's why a lot of people push STEM degrees because they find them the most lucrative going into the actual real world. But as I've pointed out, and I did a live stream where I didn't have any chat. It was just me giving a long rant about BS degrees because I made it kid friendly. That way, I couldn't have any trolls come into the live stream to possibly say something offensive to minors who might watch that video. I made a kid friendly live stream on majors, BS majors, and all that. So here, there's a lot of moving parts here, but college is still worth it. And regardless of how you may feel about it, I go by, when it comes to certain facts, I go by behavioral statistics. Behavioral statistics shows that people on average who have 4-year degrees make more than people who don't. Now, that may not be your case, but the exceptions that prove the rule don't change a probabilistic trend because that's not how it works. um, and people who have graduate degrees on average make more than those who only have 4-year degrees. So again, these things are well known. This isn't a matter of opinion. Now, do certain majors um, become more lucrative than others? Absolutely. The 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 mistake is to think all STEM degrees are equal. They are not. Science undergrad degrees are useless outside of becoming a research assistant unless you go on to grad school. Whereas a STEM degree anywhere in many of the different fields of engineering or IT, computer science, cybersecurity, those are lucrative, like just right out of undergrad. So not all STEM majors are built equally. And then on the liberal arts side, not all liberal arts degrees are useless because some liberal arts degrees can be very useful depending on the career field you're going into. And I've said this in many, many videos, I'll keep saying it. My definition of a BS of a bullshit major is much more simple than how people use it because most people use bullshit major too subjectively just to basically identify a major they don't find useful, like gender studies or queer studies or African American studies or family studies. Anything with studies is probably a bullshit major, but that's my subjective take. What my objective take is, a bullshit major is any major that you don't need to get into the very field for which you got that degree in. That's my definition of a bullshit major. And a, and so a textbook example of that is criminal justice. You do not need a criminal justice degree in any field of criminal justice to get into that field. Do some fields in criminal justice require a degree? Yes. But does it require specifically a criminal justice degree? Not at all. You don't need criminal justice or criminology to enter any field within criminal justice whatsoever. So that is a categorical bullshit major. So is communications. There is no field within what can be considered communications, which is very vague, that requires a degree within communications itself. That is another categorical bullshit major. But to say that going to college just for knowledge is over, that's false. People, that that is the actual problem, that too many people are trying to treat college like a trade school. Just because it's expensive doesn't mean that you should only treat it in the most pragmatic, completely pragmatic sense, because you're spending 4 years doing this. It better be something that you like. on some degree, which is the whole reason we take electives, so say you are taking something very dry, like you just want to do computer science because you know you're going to get a good uh, a good career once coming out of college with this computer science degree, particularly if you're taking it in a place where it's very competitive. But you might have interests elsewhere. That's why you might want to take electives. You might want to take an elective in something like philosophy or art history or Asian American studies. You might even decide that you want to do a minor in that in that field, or you might even want to do a double major. A lot of a lot of us during my era of college, we did double majors so that we had the practical major that we knew we were going to get a job in. Then we did a second major in something that we were actually passionate about. That way, you got the best of both worlds. Besides that, the second major often all the courses you took for your second major will also fulfill all your elective requirements. So smart. But to say that going to college just for knowledge is over, I don't think so. I think that's only for lower tier colleges. People who go to these little low tier for profit weekend colleges, online colleges, those are the people who might see it that way. That now they're going to school simply for higher education is over because they're going to a shitty school that merely promises them a better job, whereas most students who go to actual like prestigious institutions are still interested in actually learning. But that's my spiel. Uh, Pachio Pachio 6 says education wise, the trades are desperate for people. You can join a union, start an apprenticeship, making $22 to $30 an hour more out the gate, depending on the trade. No student debt required. Most of what you say is true, but the no student debt required is not true. Trade school can put you in just as much student loan debt as going to college. That's the current problem. Trade school used to be the better opportunity, but now you can get. I've seen these trade schools, like these schools where you go learn to get your CDL, to be a trucker. Or people are using student loans to pay for that, and they are just as expensive as going to these for-profit colleges. So that's my reason why I wouldn't have done a trade school. Is one, I'm not interested in the technical trades, and two, I know it's going to cost me the same amount as going to college. So I might as well just go to college. But for folks who are more tech savvy, I think that is a better option for them. My only gripe is that we shouldn't be treating college the same way people treat trade schools. I think there's a distinction between the two for a reason. But yeah, let's get back to the political stuff, guys. So Patchy 06 then goes and says the President Limo is a highly modified vehicle aptly named the Beast. Thank you. That's the name I was looking for. It's called the Beast. And that's why I was trying to tell someone early on in the chat that when they were making fun of Al Gore being an environmentalist who rides around in fancy limousines and jets, I'm like, you have to understand that the vehicles that dignitaries and presidents and former presidents ride around in are not for their luxury. Those are for their security. Those are highly armored vehicles. And like I said, the limousine, you said it's aptly named the Beast. Exactly. I've seen it on several, documentaries and stuff like that dealing with Secret Service and some other things. And the presidential limousine is actually a tank. It's pretty much an actual tank. It said that when the windows are inches thick and can take multiple 50 caliber rounds. Yeah. John says, "What did you do for a living?" So I do lead generation, direct marketing. BSK says PO6, not AP rounds though. Even still, the Beast is a highly armored limousine. Excuse me, highly armored limousine. Um, Eric the Guapo, guys, not Eric Lapointe. He's gone. Eric the Guapo says getting a degree does matter if it is a degree that leads to a career. Well, so that was my point to the kid earlier, Eric. He was asking me, I don't know if you can scroll up. He was saying that he said, as a freshman who's transitioning to becoming a sophomore, he said, "What advice can you give me?" And I was saying, "Well, can you make the question more specific? Because I don't know unless you give me more details." But I told him generally a degree that leads to a career nowadays is one where in which you have to find those lucrative unpaid internships. A lot of let's I mean, let's be frank, a lot of these firms try to eke out a lot of free labor out of college students, but in return for doing so, they will offer them jobs if they like them. And nowadays, like I said, it does, regardless of the major. I don't care if it's a bullshit major like criminal justice or art history. I don't think art history is a BS major, by the way, but I'm just saying, for example, for things that everyone think are BS majors like gender studies, art history, criminal justice, communications, English, English lit, right? Regardless of those majors, you have to find unpaid internships that can turn your degree into a career. That is the thing that people need to know nowadays going to college. And I think a lot of students who come from low income backgrounds don't understand that. Like a lot of people who are first time students who are minorities or come from a working class family don't know a lot of the maneuvering that you have to do in college to get a good career. It's not just about being in college, graduating with a high GPA. You need to be making friends with people in important places. And above all, you need to be doing unpaid internships in the fields that you plan on working in after you graduate. Because after you graduate, you're gonna be a dime a dozen within the workforce. So it's those unpaid internships that will help them secure a possible rewarding career once they graduate, and that's regardless of degree. So degrees do matter, but you need to do internships, and I think that needs to be pointed out to college bound people or people in college currently who are looking for the next the next level up. GJC says you don't recommend Hustlers University by Andrew Tate. Absolutely not. I like Andrew Tate, but he's a black pill type of person that will take advantage of the um uh stupid people. I was trying to put it nicely, but I can't put it a better way. Eric Guapo says the amount of debt you accumulate going to college needs to be worth it. Well, here's the thing. I mean, that's out of people's hand though. Like, because on one hand, there's another problem with higher education. So usually the better schools cost more, but the caveat is, even though the more prestigious universities cost more money than the lower tiers colleges, those more prestigious universities usually offer more in as far as scholarships and grants and fellowships to students to go there who come from a lower income background, right? And like prestigious universities have tend to have huge endowments that they can pay for student aid for lower income students. So it is worth going to a school that costs a lot more, because the prestige of graduating with that university's name on your degree will carry you much farther. Like, you're going to get much farther. Sorry guys, my connection just died out. I hope you're still there. But I was just saying that um certain degrees have more prestige than others. So sometimes it's worth getting amounting more debt for a more prestigious college than it is getting less debt or no debt at all for a less prestigious college that no one knows the name of. Because there's basically about 12 universities that nationwide will will just get your foot in the door just off the name itself. That's obviously all the 8 Ivy League schools, right? So Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Cornell, Brown, UPenn, um, and what I think I said Dartmouth, but those 8 Ivy Leagues plus the 4 Ivy Plus schools, which are um, MIT, Duke, University of Chicago, and Stanford, right? So those 12 schools alone will get your foot in the door in any place just off the prestige of those universities themselves. But they may put you in surmountable debt. However, because those schools are so prestigious, they usually have higher endowments to offer money to lower income students. Middle to higher income students are more likely to have to pay out of pocket, but their parents are more likely to have the resources to do so anyway. However, colleges can charge pretty much anything they want when you have a federal student aid system where they just throw endless amounts of money into the Department of Education to give out as grants and scholarships. So then schools can just keep hiking up their prices. So I won't you can't blame that on the student side of things for them going into debt because they're just playing they're just playing the game that's been given to them. They're the pawn in the situation. They're just playing the game that they're given, and more than likely going to those higher tier schools with the prestigious name, even though it may cause them to have a lot of debt, will more than likely lead them to a career where they can eventually pay off that debt. Whereas if they go to a lower tier school that no one's ever heard of, it's less likely that they will be able to find lucrative careers unless, again, like I said, they find those good unpaid internships or they go on to grad school. Um, Eric says the stats are a little misleading because the income to debt ratio isn't mentioned much. If you're making 70K but are 150K in debt with student loans, is different when compared to someone who is. So no, I separated the two because I didn't want to mix all that up. It would get muddled too quickly. I mean, but yeah, you definitely have a point. But like I said, that is a factoring into the situation for like a incoming student. Like say you got into both the big state school, right? But you also got into your dream school because usually like when you're in high school they tell you to have no less than 3 schools you apply to. There's your there's your ideal school that you don't think you maybe get into, but you would still love to apply there just in case they decide you can get in there, just because the algorithm of how these schools pick students is a bit of a mystery. So there's your dream school, then this there's the school that you think you qualify for, and then there's your safety school. And then, like I said, but so somewhere between 3 to 5 schools you should be applying to. There's like your 1 or 2 ideal schools, your 2 schools you think you may get into, and then there's your safety school. So anywhere between 3 to 5 different colleges you should be applying for once you're like a junior in high school, latest senior, but ideally like junior. Some may even do it sophomore year, but generally junior year of high school. And but say you get into the state school, like you get into, I don't know, Michigan State, right? Which is a pretty good school on its own. But you get into Michigan State, but you also got accepted into um, Princeton, right? So so you know that if you go to Michigan, it's going to cost you a lot less. You'll get like your Pell Grants and student loans, but it's not going to cost you as much as going to Princeton. So it becomes this decision. Well, hey, if I go to Princeton, I'm gonna be in much more debt, but the prestige of going to Princeton is gonna probably find me in a much more lucrative firm 4 years from now, as opposed to Michigan State. It's still a good school. It's my state school, and it'll cost me less, but it won't have the same prestige as going to Princeton. That was my dream school in the first place. So it's these considerations, and it's kind of unfair that 16, 17-year-olds have to make this huge decision in their life. And it's even worse when they are first year college students, so their parents really can't guide them on this decision because they didn't go on to college themselves and don't have the guidance to give their children. So, um, But Eric says, so who's making 50K but does not have the 100K worth of student loans? FBI rather have accounting majors. What's up, Blondie? By the way, and um, also, I want to give a shout out to Blondie for the donation. I love being able to drink coffee. So people who send me donations for um, drinking coffee, I highly appreciate it. Thank you again, Blondie. Appreciate it. She goes on to say, FBI I'd rather have accounting majors. That is true. So at my school, my alma mater, University of Maryland, because we're so close to DC, we get all the government agencies coming to our school for career day. Like there matter of fact, there's just a career day just for government agencies. We get all of them like FBI, CEI, excuse me, CIA, DEA, all of them, and they were telling us like what sort of majors they were looking for. They are looking for stuff like accounting or people with uh, backgrounds in linguistics, stuff like that, which was my third major, by the way. Because my friend did actually tell me to apply for the State Department because we both were linguistic majors, and he knew that I also had a military background like he did. But unlike him, he had just been fresh out of the Air Force, where I had been out of the Army for a while, and so I no longer had my top level security clearance like he did, which could have been good for getting into that State Department position that he eventually received. He's still telling me to do it, but I'm like, man, that's gonna take like a year or two just to get through that whole process. Blondie says graduate with accounting, a bookkeeping degree, you can get a job with FBI easier than someone with criminology degree. Exactly, and that was my point about criminology being a bullshit major is because in my definition of a bullshit major, a bullshit major is any major that you don't need to get a degree in that field to go into that field, and criminology is one of those. Like there's no there's no field within law enforcement or criminal justice that you need a criminology degree. Other degrees are much more worthwhile, like accounting, like you just mentioned, accounting, finance, linguistics. um, uh, FBI has a whole behavioral science department, so they look for people with a background in, say, like psychology. Um, Eric Guapo says the problem is not that people are treating it like a trade school. The problem is that it is way too expensive and the value of that overpriced degree is lower. It's not either or, it's both. But yeah, people are treating it as a trade school. So they say, well, just go get your degree in STEM and you'll get a good job. And I was like, no, that's wrongheaded. But yeah, then there's also the problem that higher education has become too expensive, like I was just mentioning, and sometimes those overpriced degrees don't don't translate to lucrative jobs. But I was saying the secret to that is that students need to know that they must do unpaid internships to get those lucrative jobs, regardless of the degree. And if you are in like Ivy League schools or Ivy Plus schools, you those social clubs become very important in getting and learning, well, getting connections. So that's why half the time in some of these Ivy League schools, they aren't even in attendance. They're not even in attendance at their lectures half the time. They'll just record them or get the notes from someone else. But they're more often spending their time in these social clubs to make connections. That's like these are some of the soft skills that people need to learn in college. It's not just about getting a degree. That's what I'm saying. It's a big difference between going to college and going to trade school. Trade school is just about learning the skill. That's not the same with college. College, you need to learn, you need to be making social connections with people that's going to further you on your career, and you need to be finding unpaid internships that's going to translate to possible careers, as well as also getting your degree and maintaining your GPA. So it's not. That's why I'm saying some people are treating it like trade school, and by doing so, they're doing themselves a disservice. Um, so most trade schools pay for schooling if you go to an apprenticeship or for a number of years. The same for a lot of degrees in healthcare Employers usually pay for schooling if you work for it. Well, yeah, there's scholarships out there available, but right now the problem is a lot of trade schools are just as expensive as colleges. Like I said, I literally see like right here at the mall near me. Well, they closed it down, but they used to be the, I think it's called North American Trade School or something like that. And they had several different trades like getting your CDL, nursing, and a few, I think something else. But that costs money. And it's like they were like when I was looking at some of the tuition for these trade schools, I'm like, shit, this is like going to college. Eric says then a certain amount of years after getting licensed, right? So because you definitely is the big money comes in with the trade schools, like when so like for like people with the CDL, like the CDL has become overhyped within the black community for less educated people. Like the CDL has become the master's degree of the ghetto. And I'm like, you're not really making money with a CDL unless you start owning your own trucks, like you own your own fleet of trucks or whatever. Those are the people who are making big money, not just someone who happens to have a CDL. Like you need to own your own trucks. But they treat the CDL like it's a master's degree in the ghetto, and it's like no, it's really not. And like I said, it can be expensive going to these trade schools. They will put you in just as much debt. And the $1 trillion student loan debt currently in America, that's not just college students. Those are people who went to these fugazi for-profit schools and to people who went to trade schools. Because like I said, a lot of these trade schools are so expensive that you have to apply for federal student aid for those as well, or take out private student loans, which are even worse than federal student aid because all the privatized private student loans are unsubsidized student loans. So um, Eric says it's common for EMTs, paramedics, and nurses. Yep. Eric says very true. Any degree worth its salt usually requires some kind of internship. Yeah, and that's my device. Excuse me, my advice to fire maker above and anyone else who's considering these choices right now. If you're going to college or if you are already in college, you need to be doing internships and don't just look for paid internships. The problem is lower income students always look for paid internships, and those aren't the lucrative ones because the lucrative firms are always looking for free labor out of students. But those are the ones who are going to promise you the better jobs. A lot of those paid internships don't translate into jobs afterwards. Some of them do. Like you might have, like my friend did an internship with NASA, but it's that's not always the case. Eric says these days some of those unpaid internships are paid, especially in medicine and education. It depends on the field. Like I said, the important thing is to find internships rel- relevant to your field of study, whether they're paid or unpaid. But I was saying, by and large, the better internships are going to be the unpaid ones. Now, if you can find a paid one, that's the best of that's the best of both worlds. But often they aren't. Like I said, overseas in most colleges in a lot of places overseas, the internship is actually a part of the degree. Like you have to do an internship to receive the degree. That's not that's not the case here in America, unfortunately, because they're always trying to, America, like they're trying to squeeze free labor out of these students. So it becomes completely optional of doing internships. But if you don't do an internship nowadays, you're almost not likely to. You're going to be behind all the college students who did. So you're going to be sitting there looking through classifieds. um, Eric says it depends what you get at the prestigious school. If you go to Harvard for a degree, you can only lead it for a degree. You can only lead to a teaching degree. That is a bad decision. The alumni network is irrelevant at that point. No, like no, it's I kind of disagree. Like I said, if you go to any Ivy League school, regardless of the degree, that's an automatic foot in the door in any place you go because those names are known nationwide and internationally. Like internationally, everyone knows Harvard and Yale and MIT and probably Stanford. Like those those names are known worldwide. And I know even overseas, like I'm in the Philippines, even though I went to, just a state school, but it's one of the biggest, it's one of the better public research universities across the world. My degree, just being that it's American, is still more prestigious than any school in the Philippines. So it names matter a lot when it comes to degrees. Even like I said, even if you just got a degree in like music and musicology, and yes, that is a real field, musicology. I actually took an elective in ethnomusicology, so it was like easy grade, so I don't care. And it was fun because we actually got to meet like actual performing artists and stuff. J.A.C says, "Why go to college, break some laws, and run for president?" No, all the presidents still have degrees. Trump is still an Ivy League president. He still graduated from UPenn. Even if people thought he got into it through his father's connections, he still graduated from the college. So he's still an Ivy League president, which is more than you can say about Biden. And Trump may not have admitted what his GPA was, but at least he didn't plagiarize and lie like Biden did. Like I said, Biden lied about his educational prowess, and he got caught plagiarizing in law school, which cost him his 1988 presidential campaign. Because, like I said, that's how long he's been running for office. Blondie says you're welcome. Thank you. Eric says college pays off if you got a worthwhile degree. I have two degrees, a NA. I think you mean a BA, right? In psychology and a master's in secondary education. I make 100,000 K and I'm 91K in debt. I will not trade my degrees for a trade. Yeah. So I know that we both shared psychology backgrounds. That's cool. Um, yeah. Again, I agree. Like not all, I've already argued it earlier that not all degrees are equal. That's that's definitely the point. But what I was saying is the more general point, regardless of degree. Although, yeah, for pragmatic reasons, you should be picking degrees that are so. If your interest is in making high income, there are only certain fields you should go into. Absolutely. And if you are worried about amassing a large amount of debt to go to a good school, then you might want to make more pragmatic decisions in your major. Absolutely. I think we're in agreement there. My only thing is I'm saying is regardless of the degree, make sure you get internships, make sure you make good social connections. Like I said, especially on the Ivy League level, those social clubs become more important than going to class sometimes. So, uh, Eric says trade school tuitions, trades tuition for years of work. If you break the contract, that is when you have to pay them back for school. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But like I said, it depends. Some of them I've seen you're paying out of pocket. And so a lot of people end up taking out student loans to go to those schools. And unfortunately, I don't think that a lot of academic scholarships will pay for trade school. So you're pretty much either all paying out of pocket or doing student loans. Eric says, I worked for an EMS agency that paid you to get your EMT cert or your medic license, but you had to work for them 4 years afterwards. If you don't do the 4 years, you pay them back for the schooling. So I understand. So it's sort of like getting a commission. Like if you sort of like getting a commission through going to one of the military academies. Like if you go to Naval Academy, like here in Maryland in Annapolis, uh, that 4 years of college, I think you do 4 years as a commissioned officer within the Navy or the Marines. Same thing um, with the Army or the Coast Guard Academy or the Air Force Academy and the Merchant Marines Academy. Um, Same thing. Also, the military has a medical school. I think it's under the Army specifically, but I think it's open. It may be open to any branch as a commissioned officer. Um, but the Army has its own medical school in Bethesda, Maryland, and you get it's kind of that's a pretty good pretty good deal. You get to go to medical school for free in exchange for you receiving a direct commission as a medical officer in the military once you graduate. And direct commission is sweet. A direct commission is not you going through officer candidate school. It's just you taking 2 weeks of training of how to be a military officer. You don't have to worry about all the physicality of becoming a commissioned officer the way you would if you had to go through officer candidate school or or RLTC or any of that. So or the or through the military academies. But what time is it, guys? I think it's kind of late. Excuse me for my close up. Didn't mean to do that. Um, but yeah, we're gonna about to end this. Like I said, this was supposed to be originally a discussion about the aftermath of Trump's hearing. Like I said, I think his court hearing was unfair, but it was also kind of representative of how the American justice system has been for a long time. It's just that when it hits some of our most elite figures, and then we realize that there's a problem. And I think if they try to make an example of him in sentencing, it's going to lead to possible political violence, and we don't want that. Also, as of now, it doesn't stop him from running, and I think this is going to be a galvanizing moment when the Democrats definitively lost the election, when they decided to use the court system to go after a candidate that they can't beat in the polls. So, Rob, this is how I feel about the COVID vaccine. Well, I've taken it, Rob. Took 3 jabs. I didn't go do the fourth one like people were suggesting. And originally the COVID vaccine came under Trump, and the way people feel about it has been political. Because I remember when the vaccine first came out, when Trump was still in office, everyone on the left, all the Democrats were saying, "I'm not taking it. I don't trust that from Trump," even though he had nothing to do with the medicine. Um, but they were all against it. Then as soon as Biden came in office, they was like, "Oh yeah, everybody needs to get this COVID vaccine." I'm like, it was the same one under Trump, but now you guys are for it just because a different person is in office. It shows how people are people's politics blind them to critical thinking. So yeah, I took it. I didn't take it so much that I was worried about my life. I was worried about the older people in my life, like my mother and other elderly people I might be around, um, at the time. Same thing my wife did with her mom, because her mom has a pre-existing health condition. So she and her siblings didn't want to risk her mom's health. So for me, it was more about it being a public health concern, not so much for my life. I knew that I'm a healthy person. I run 10 kilometers every day. I'm not worried about the COVID flu. I took it merely to protect people around me who might not be as healthy. My grandfather did pass away in a nursing home a few years ago. He caught COVID. This is after the pandemic, and this is in 2022. But when he was already you know, um, in a nursing home, he was, starting to suffer from dementia, and they did mention that he had COVID when he died, which I think eventually led to his death. Um, but again, like all of us, except well, my sister and her kids didn't get vaccinated, and I was kind of upset because, like I said, they're risking my mother's health. But that's why I took the vaccine, Ray, just to make sure that I protected people around me who aren't as healthy. Sorry for that long answer. Eric says, let me get back to you, Eric. Sorry, my brother was a merchant marine for the MSC for 10 years. He started as an ordinary seaman and worked his way up and got his captain license. I hope it does. Um, that's cool. And I know a lot of those merchant marines have turned into passport bros because they get to travel a lot. It's pretty good. It's not a bad way of life. Plus, they're not military unless well, if they receive a commission, then they're commissioned as a naval officer. But the the enlisted within the merchant marines or I guess civilian or whatever they might be considered. Eric says, I hope it doesn't lead to violence. I don't either. But like I said, I know a lot of people are pissed off, and what makes them even more pissed off is seeing the political smugness of Democrats, thinking that this is over, and it's not. So when you see the person standing over you who won gloating about it, that's just going to make you more angry, and I think that's a bad situation. Blondie says, I agree with you about the Trump trial 100. Yeah, exactly. I know an unfair trial when I see one. So I just don't see how he got charged on all 34 counts. Especially when, like I said, when we're talking about a porn star who's been dishonest, who said previously live on live TV on Bill Maher, and Bill Maher pointed out this contradiction as well because he said Bill Maher, everyone knows he's a liberal and that he dislikes Trump, but he blatantly said as well that Stormy Daniels is lying because she said on his show that everything that happened between she and Trump was consensual. Now she's in the courtroom claiming that it was assault, trying to paint this man as a predator. Then you have his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who is known to lie to get out of any sort of criminal things that he got himself into a few years ago when he got convicted. These are supposed to be credible witnesses. I don't buy it. Races, and they took out all those service members, but only a few came back. Hmm. I do 15 kilometers a day. Okay, so you beat me, sir. I try to do 2 runs a day when I'm feeling good about it, right? But yeah, I do my 10K a day. Then I try to do a little shadow boxing, some calisthenics. Um, but like I said, when I'm feeling froggy, I'll do a second run. I also have you can't see it right now. I have a weighted tactical vest that I use to run in sometimes. It's about 20 pounds to simulate, being out in the field. Nate says America had the most shots out of every country, yet had the most deaths. Did they have the most shots though? I mean, if we had the most shots, it's just because we have one of the largest populations. I don't think we had the largest amount of shots. I think places like China did because it wasn't, it was mandatory there. Like they were making people get shots, but they also had the most amount of deaths. So America did not have the most amount of deaths because China lied about both China and North Korea lied about their numbers. North Korea claimed they had 0 deaths. That's a lie. There's no country that has 0 COVID deaths, not whatsoever. And China claimed within that pandemic era that they only had like 4,600 deaths, even though the reporting coming out of there was they were constant bodies being taken to morgues and stuff like that every day. Like they had trucks of bodies going around these cities in China, but they only had 4,600 something deaths, right? That was a lie. So America may have had the most deaths because we were honest about it, but trust and believe that we did not have the most deaths. China did. They were That was the seat of where it was caused. And I shouldn't be saying this because YouTube will ding me for this, and I'm trying to get monetized. But I'm not gonna lie on this stuff. Like China had the most deaths. It was the it was the it was where the infections ticked off. The guy who was the whistleblower died of it himself. Who they have far more deaths and they also have far more vaccinations, but a lot of their vaccinations were inferior, so much so that the people in the CCP were refusing to take in the Chinese vaccine. They were instead taking the one that they were giving out in Europe. They refused to take the local one that they were forcing Chinese citizens to take. So that's not true. Uh, Sean Ganny says, watching from South Africa. What's up, Sean? Always appreciate our African brothers chiming in. Eric says, my brother is one of the few black men who obtained his captain license by not going through their schools, but by taking the test. The man is a beast. That's what's up. That's what's up. Hemorrhoid is gone. We don't deal with trolls here. Lena Black says, you think COVID was real, huh? Yes, dumbass. Palawi Palawi P Big Four said, I've never seen Chinese people eat Chinese food. Explain, Uncle Cousin. Simple. What we call Chinese food is not what they consider Chinese food. What we eat is Americanized Chinese takeout. That's not real Chinese. That's not authentic Chinese food. When Chinese people eat authentic Chinese food, they go to restaurants within like Chinatown and places within Chinese communities where they get authentic Chinese food. Chinese takeout is for the American palate. They're not eating General Tso chicken and shrimp fried rice. That's not authentic Chinese food. That's why you don't see them eating it because it's for them what we consider Chinese food to them is just American food. That's why. John says, "Do you have Caucasian blood in you?" Yeah. Um, I actually did. Okay, so I know you didn't see the live stream, but I actually did an entire live stream where I shown my genetic background. Anyone, Eric, I think you were in that live stream. Yeah, I did a whole live stream where I talked about my ancestral background. I, I have, from that, I saw that I was, roughly about 70% um, African ancestry, mostly from West and Central Africa, um, a little East African, but then um, uh, I guess 20%. Wait, I think was it 80? No, it was about 70 something. And I think about 29% of was European, of both northwestern and southern European descent. And I even have Neanderthal ancestry because anyone who has European ancestry has some degree of Neanderthal ancestry. So yeah, I do have some European ancestry in me. Most most Black Americans do, which makes me think you're not Black yourself because most people who are Black American, foundational Black American, that is not Black migrant. I mean, not African migrants, not Caribbean migrants. We all know that we all have European ancestry. I'm related to Thomas Jefferson, so of course I have European ancestry, and I have on my father's side also, I believe, possibly some Dutch Jewish ancestry. So, how did this fool come back? And Eric the Guapo says, "Who doesn't in America?" Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna take it as I'm gonna take it as a genuine question, but it's like he may not be American because everyone in America knows Black people have European ancestry. For the longest time, though, they tried to write it off as Native American ancestry. The whole myth that within the Black community is that we all have like Native American ancestry, but I think that has just been a way of writing off the European ancestry because it's less embarrassing. Because a lot of us considered that European ancestry may have came uh, the time where Black people were in bondage, but that's not necessarily the case. A lot of it was consensual as well. Sean says, I think the things that make America great is also going to be its downfall. Um, I don't think so. It depends on what you're referring to. Like if you're talking about superficial things, there were never things that made us great, but just people like them. That's not really what makes us great. I mean, there's a great book by this guy named Jared Diamond who does history from a more scientific point of view, from looking at it from biogeography, who wrote a great book on why certain nations have risen to the top above others, particularly in the West. It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel. That kind of explains a lot about why we're at the top. Um, Agent Rex FN says, "Hi, remember me, Kubian Jeff. Changed my name. I remember a Jeff. I don't remember the Kubian part, but welcome back, of course." Eric says, "Yep, my European ancestors banged Neanderthals into extinction." So, so it's been controversy over that. So the the prior the the previous thought was that modern humans, at least biologically modern humans, because today they will look just as primitive to us as Neanderthals did, which are like the Cro-Magnons. They also had huge brows like Neanderthals, just not as pronounced as Cro-Magnons. The thing is that originally we thought that because they were smarter and healthier than the Neanderthals, that they outcompeted them. But yeah, I think it's that basically they ended up interbreeding with Neanderthals. Also, the Neanderthals weren't outcompeted by us, but as the climate changed, as the the things they relied, the species and things died out that they relied on through you know over hunting these animals and not being able to also rely on like agriculture and stuff like that. I think they died off on their own accord. I don't think it was through warfare like we were initially thought, that there was a lot of warfare between Neanderthals and modern humans. I think a lot of Neanderthals ended up interbreeding with modern humans, Europeans, and the many of the other ones ended up dying off just because they were in a world where they were no longer the fittest for survival, but they lived for a long time. Same thing in Asia. We had the Denisovans. The Denisovans were also a primitive human species that died out, but also interbred with ancient Asians at the time. So most Asians will have some Denisovan ancestry in them, just the way Europeans today will have some Neanderthal ancestry in them. And even in some of the Southeast Asian islands, we found another species of human that may have been an offshoot of Homo habilis, but they were named hobbits when they were found because they were miniature humans. And at first they thought these were just deformed people, but then they found so many of the remains of these people. They realized no, these people were just a separate subspecies of ancient humans, and they got named Homo flores from the Flores Islands. They were found in Indonesia. They later found some in the Philippines as well. So human history is very interesting if people want to ever study biological anthropology. Esco says at the end of the day, we you are a child of our heavenly Father. Um, Eric Guapo says not sure if this is true, but I believe it. Edward the N word says Happy Pride Month. Yeah, we're not doing that. GJC says black co-workers explain to me how the black community doesn't support each other. If he gets promoted, his black peers aren't happy for him. Thoughts? This isn't trolling anyway. Oh, I know it's not. I already know it's not. You're not trolling, dude. You've been here for a long time. Um, yeah, there's many problems in the black community. I don't know if you've ever seen any of my pre-recorded videos, but I've talked about that ad nauseum. Especially, I have a friend, and sometimes we drive around, and he'll be like, "Let's do a video," and so we'll do a video on something that we've been talking about, off camera, or something we're reacting to something we've seen on the news or talked about with other people, and we've talked about problems in the black community often that a lot. This is one of the reasons why you have movements like Save Yourself Black Man and Passport Bros, people who've just decided the black community is just too toxic and don't want to deal with it. So it's a very real issue, but I don't want to get into that too much here. That can be a completely different topic for another day. Esco says pride isn't a good thing; it's just a sin. So here's the thing: I don't knock homosexuality, but at the same time, people will come in here just trying to be trolls. That's why I wasn't putting up with that guy saying it because I knew he was just trying to be a troll. I personally don't have anything with homosexual men or women from a psychological viewpoint. There's nothing wrong with it. Freud defended homosexuals. I'm surprised that people in the LGBTQ community don't hold Freud in the high esteem because he was an early supporter of them. He said there was nothing psychologically wrong about homosexuality. He even went so far to say that humans didn't weren't born with a sexual orientation or gender preference. Like I said, he Freud should be a hero within the rainbow community. I'm surprised that he's not, because when you read his writings, he was very supportive of that. He didn't believe masculinity or femininity was something that people were born with. He thought it was something that was learned as he thought it was with sexual orientation. So from a psychological viewpoint, I mean, he's right. Um, as far as a religious viewpoint, I can understand people are against it. Um, but like I said, some people would just come in here talking that gay stuff just to be trolls. So that's why I timed that guy out. And if he comes back talking some trash in my next live stream, I'll just ban him from the channel like I've done several others. Eric Guabo says, "Are the pygmies in the Congo considered a subspecies, or are they considered tiny humans?" Yeah, they're just considered tiny humans. They're not considered subspecies. Um, and you have a lot of small black people who are in Southeast Asia. They're called the Negritos, um, and they have different names in different parts of Southeast Asia. Like in the Philippines, they're known as the Eta. Um, and there's a different there's the Eta of the northern Philippines and the Eta of the southern Philippines because they arrived in two different migration routes to the Philippines. And there's a third group as well. I forgot their name. And you see some of these indigenous black people in Southeast Asia and other countries too, like in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. Like these were all waves of people who traveled um, coming from Africa into like um, around the peninsula of India and eventually arriving into Southeast Asia and even eventually into the Pacific Islands. So, but they're not a subspecies. The subspecies, like I said, Homo flores, that they've recently been found in Indonesia and in the Philippines. That was a separate species. Blondie says, I think Esco was referring to pride in the biblical pride sense and not the month. Yeah, yeah, that's what I was saying. I think if he's talking about it in a religious sense, I completely understand. But like I said, that one guy who came in here saying Happy Pride Month was just, he was obviously being a troll. So that's why I timed him out. Blondie says, like pride comes before the fall. I got you. I see. And besides that, why do you need a Pride Month to celebrate your sexual orientation? Like that's nutty. But I'm not gonna go into that. Eric de Guapo says the Khoisan in South Africa are about the size of the pygmies, and they have some Asian features. They are beautiful people. Yeah, like you see the the in the continent of Africa is the most genetically diverse in all of the world. So that's not going to be. So that's not a surprise. Like I said, the continent of Africa is the most genetically diverse continent on the planet. Riley Allen says, "Yo, from Australia, it's 2:34 p.m. What's up, Riley? I'm about to go, guys. I did not know it was over midnight, and the wifey did not warn me." Where is she? Matter of fact, let me looking on my other phone. Eric says it's fascinating thinking about how the world was connected in the past, especially during the Ice Age, where there were more land bridges and smaller bodies of waters to traverse. Yeah, this is how we got Native Americans in America. These were originally East Asians who passed the Bering Land Bridge between what is now, Siberia to Alaska. I was just telling my wife about this last week, and she was shocked. She didn't know that was the history of Native Americans in America. That they were people who came here like, like 60,000, not well, about what 30, 40,000 years ago, crossing a land bridge when there was an ice age because the the ocean levels were much lower back then because most of the water was kept frozen in ice form. Oh, she says she's deep cleaning our couch right now. Oh shoot, she likes doing stuff like that. I don't know. And then, like I said, the it was easy to traverse the Southeast Asia because a lot of those islands between like Indonesia, the Philippines, and uh, and so forth were all connected all the way up to like southern India. Like you could like it would have been a short boat trip between going from like southern and the tip of southern India over into like Indonesia. Remember, Indonesia was considered at some points in history, like Indonesia and the Philippines were actually part of the Hindu empires, and you even see if you go if some of you folks ever went to Indonesia and the Philippines, like I have, you'll there's some parts of the islands where you can still see like ancient like Hindu temples and stuff there because they did used to be part of the Hindu kingdoms in ancient times before they were colonized by Europeans. Um, Indonesia, I think, was colonized by the Dutch, and the Philippines, obviously, by the Spanish, which is how they got the name Philippines from King Philip. So, interesting. Like I said, I was a history nerd. So, anyway, so I think we kind of spoke about Trump a lot in this stream and in my stream earlier this afternoon. So, I'm probably going to give it a go here. I think there's a good exiting point. Unless anyone has any other questions, and no, it doesn't have to be just about Trump. Like, if you have any more questions about what we were just talking about as far as history or as far as the college thing or why we're not going to be celebrating Pride Month because it's now June the 1st here and Eastern Standard Time. It's 12:38 p.m. I mean a.m. So it is June the 1st, which is the start of Pride Month. But unlike many other monthly celebrations, that won't be done here on this channel. We acknowledged last month the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Awareness Month for May, and April. I can't remember if that was Latino Awareness Month or whatever, but um, I think I said something about that in passing. I'm not sure, but be mindful that I wasn't really doing these vertical live streams all that much back in April either. I think towards the end of April, I've really started doing those vertical live streams like today. And I definitely wasn't in the March, so didn't do anything about Women's Month or Black History Month in February. But I did mention it in other videos. Yeah, they pretty much just have a month for everyone. Eric Blondie says, "Have a good night's sleep." Well, thank you, and I'll be able to buy more coffee because of you. So thank you. Blondie says, "Yeah, just say no to a month of Pride." Yeah, it's crazy. They're gonna be in Baltimore though celebrating. I've seen it when I go into the city. Like they have a um what do you call those things? A march? Yeah, they do like a Pride march downtown, and it used to suck because it used to be around the same time that I would go to Comic Con, And so, people will cosplay when they go on a Comic Con. They would get mixed up with the people in Pride Month that's also dressed up. So it became pretty interesting. Eric says that's why I'm only celebrating Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Forget all these monthly celebrations. Halloween has become my favorite holiday. I think it has. I think for a lot of adults, Halloween has become like their favorite holiday because we've kind of reclaimed that holiday for our own from children with all the parties, the movies, and everything else. Thanksgiving is cool. That's kind of bland to me. The only thing I look forward to is literally just eating. Like that's about it. There's nothing else about Thanksgiving really worth celebrating. That and some pumpkin pie. And of course, I'm I'm a traitor to most black people because I prefer pumpkin pie over sweet potato pie. Most black people say sweet potato pie is better. Honestly, I can't even taste the difference. Like if I taste them side by side, I really can't taste the difference between pumpkin and sweet potato pie. But I prefer pumpkin just because I think it's more festive than sweet potato, which you can eat any time of the year. GJC's June 1st is National Olive Day. Enjoy it. I rarely eat olives except on sandwiches and maybe in my spaghetti. But yeah, like either on steak subs. I mean, either on like hoagies or um or on spaghetti is the only time I really eat olives. National Heimlich Maneuver Day. uh, Definitely wouldn't want to do that. Blondie says yes, pumpkin pie. It's funny. Someone posted on my Facebook 2 days ago. List your favorite pies, and they had like a bunch of them. So my three favorites were apple pie, pumpkin pie, and key lime pie. Those are my favorites. And I know that sounds very white to my black people out there, but I like what I like. Eric says the pie go for his key lime, and yes, sir, key lime. It was actually a black friend that turned me on the key lime pie because we kept going to one of those bars to do like the Buffalo Wing Wednesdays. Remember, I don't know if bars still do that, but remember like you go to some of the bars and it'd be like buffalo wings for like 10 cents a wing or something like that. And we get that, and then we get like key lime pie. And I saw it, I was like, that look good. I said, let me try that. I tried it. I was like, oh my God, this is good. So yeah, that's definitely it's been one of my favorites ever since. Eric says my mother is Portuguese and she throws down during Thanksgiving. I gotta turn my wife onto that because they don't do Thanksgiving in the Philippines, but there are a few American restaurants that do Thanksgiving because obviously you can't find turkey. It's going to be pretty hard to find turkey in the Philippines, and my wife doesn't know how to fix it. Although I told her it would just be like fixing a big chicken, and she can roast a chicken. GJC says shepherd's pie. Ew, no, I don't know if you're joking or you're serious, but ew. Shepherd's pie. Blondie says my husband loves key lime pie, but we are from Florida, so it's normal. Is that a big thing in Florida, the key lime pie? I like I said, I literally just know it because a friend introduced it to me in college like when we used to go buy buffalo wings, and so like we would just pig out on these 10 cent buffalo wings, and then he would get a dessert with it, and it was key lime pie, and I was like, well, let me try it, and it was delicious. GJC says we have a Somali neighborhood near us, and their Somali milk cake is amazing. I haven't heard of that. I am familiar with some of the Chinese desserts they eat on Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year. Like well, not moon cake. Moon cake is for a different holiday, not Lunar New Year, but they have certain desserts as well. Key limes are only from the key. I didn't know that. Okay, thanks. I didn't know that the key lime is only from the Key Islands. Okay. Eric de Guapo says that the church I grew up in had a lot of people from Alabama. We had one lady named Sister Okra, and she would make me fried okra and key lime pie all the time. I miss that lady. I'm trying to remember if I've had fried okra. When you say fried, do you mean like deep fried, or do you mean like um just like fried in like grease or something? Because I've had deep fried broccoli, and that's delicious. My mom used to make that for me. Sometimes she would make it with cauliflower, but cauliflower is not as good. And she also would make it with zucchini, but I hate zucchini, except like if it's mixed in like a soup or spaghetti. But the fried broccoli was good. It was like, battered and deep fried, and I would just sprinkle it with ketchup. That was delicious. I think that was her way of trying to get me to eat green vegetables. Eric Guap says those Chinese mooncakes and lime cakes are amazing. Yes, sir. And like I said, it's cool because when I'm in the Philippines, well, specifically Manila, Manila has the oldest Chinatown in the world called Binondo. It was established in like 1609 or something like that. So it's the oldest Chinatown in the world. And you know, Chinese New Year is great because I can go right to Chinatown and find all sorts of stuff. They'll even do like the little Chinese dragon dance. Um, it's great because there's a huge like Chinese Filipino population that lives in the Philippines, and especially in that region of Metro Manila called Binondo. Uh, Dilfer says 10-cent buffalo wings. Damn, that sounds amazing. Now wings are more than $1 each. Right, right. So it was like one of those specials. Like I'm sure you guys probably remember that. Like mind you, this is 22 years ago, right? But yeah, we used to go to like Buffalo Wing Wednesday or whatever it was called, and it would be like 10-cent wings or 15-cent wings. I think it was no longer than like it depends. Some bars might be 10 cents, some place 15 cents, some place 20 cents. But usually you buy like a big bucket full of these wings, and we were just tearing them up, and then we would just divide the price based on how many wings we ate. Um, and like I said, I was like, it was a great bargain for poor college students, right? You try to stretch your money where you can. GJC, yes, I love some Hallow Hallow. Definitely, you must have bought that at Jollibee's, didn't you? Yeah, I like Hallow Hallow. It's pretty good. There's it's actually a widespread dessert within East Asia. Like there's a version of it everywhere. Like I've seen there's a Chinese version of it. There's a South Korean version of it because there used to be a South Korean part of the mall next to where I live here in Baltimore County, and there was a Korean spa, and up and part of the Korean spa there was a restaurant, and they used to sell this dessert that was just like Hello Hello. The Japanese have a version of it as well. So it seems like it's a very common dessert within East Asia. They just have like local local differences in how it's made, but they all have some version of it. Blondie says key limes were originally from there. They were probably grown elsewhere now. Oh, okay. But yeah, I didn't know that's where they originated. Oh, it's deep fried okra and batter. I would be willing to try it, but I doubt I'm gonna like it as much as fried broccoli, just because probably because I grew up on fried broccoli. And like I said, none of the other deep fried vegetables I've tasted have been as good as fried broccoli. I've tried cauliflower, zucchini, maybe even squash. I hate squash more than zucchini. Like I hate squash. Um, but I can't remember if my mother ever made fried okra, deep fried. But I would try it. When Delphi says, when were you in the Philippines? Did you ever try balut? Oh, I refuse to try balut. I absolutely refuse. And I go back and forth to the Philippines regularly. The debate now is whether I'm going to stay there indefinitely or not, which has nothing to do with the politics here in America, but just um, making a better move for me and where I feel the most at home at, which has become the Philippines for a long time. They're some of the friendliest people in the world. Um, it's it's like being in a tropical like paradise. And the cost of living is cheaper. The women are beautiful. It's I, it can do no wrong in my eye. The politics aren't that great, but everywhere's politics is crazy, right? Blondie says I can't do okra, but love Brussels sprouts. So I'll eat Brussels sprouts sometimes, but I have to eat it with something. I can't eat it alone. Like I absolutely refused Brussels sprouts when I was a kid. I squash, Brussels sprouts, and beets. I could not eat. I still won't eat beets, to even today. But now I can at least eat Brussels sprouts, but it has to be mixed with something. I can't eat it alone, but I will eat it. Okra, like I said, I rarely eat okra unless it's like mixed in a stew or something like that. I've never, I don't believe I've ever ate it alone. Here's another thing: uh, um, asparagus wrapped in bacon. That's delicious. Eric says, oh, man, I would have done the same thing. I couldn't eat vegetables without dipping in the ketchup. It would piss my mother off so much. So my mother didn't mind me putting it in ketchup. Like I said, I think for her it was just a win that I was eating vegetables. But I was never averse to eating vegetables just because since I had PKU when I was a young kid, I couldn't eat very much meat anyway. It was only after I became 6 years old that they started letting me eat a lot of meat. But before the age of six, I wasn't really eating any meat. The only time I had meat was when my Jamaican nanny used to sneak it to me as a kid, and she would tell my mom, "Oh no, he loves Jamaican food." But aside from my Jamaican nanny fixing me Jamaican food, which is why I still love Jamaican food to this day, I didn't eat meat until I was like probably 6 years old, and which included also like eggs and dairy, which is why I'm not very much into eggs or dairy food today as well, because like I said, none of these foods I could really eat up until the time I was six. And by that time happened, like, I already had a certain taste. But the fact that I would dip my food in like ketchup or whatever, she didn't care. I remember I used to make pancakes and I didn't even use syrup. I would just smother it in butter, and she would tell people, "Oh, that's how he likes eating his pancakes." It's a good thing I didn't have a coronary as a kid because it was an unhealthy amount I used of butter. Like I would use butter the way people use syrup for my pancakes, and that was very unhealthy as a kid. Luckily, but I was not a fat kid though. Eric says I love okra, baked, fried, broil. I can eat it all. Oh, you're a fan of it. Yeah. Okra and gumbo. Adelphi says I haven't really had gum. Well, I had gumbo, but not like authentic gumbo. I eat gumbo that doesn't have seafood, and I eat like gumbo using like chicken or whatever. But yeah, that's when I've had okra was like in gumbo or some other stew. But I've never had it like by itself. Gumbos and seafood broils, man. I know what I'm making tomorrow. I already got you going, huh? Devin says, "Yeah, what seafood are you going to use, Eric?" So Brussels sprouts are very bitter. Yeah, but if you cook them well, like the way my mother makes them, like she seasons it, and however she makes it, it's not that bad. But it still has a very strong taste that like I can't eat it alone. I have to mix it with something to make it go down. No diddy. Eric says red potatoes, shrimp, and crab legs. Okay. J.A.C says we have air fried Brussels sprouts and eat them like crispy chips. So air fried Brussels sprouts, crispy. I don't know about that one. Maybe Blondie might like that, but I can't. I don't know about making it crispy. I like it. I like eating it similar to like I don't know, like I eat it similar in a way like I would eat like cabbage. As a matter of fact, I would mix it with something like cabbage or kale, or even with like some rice or something like that. But I can't eat it alone. Daryl said, "Yes, sir. It sounds like it's gonna be some bomb seafood boil." um, Eric says, "My grandpa and mom hated that I would eat the spicy dishes. My dad, on the other hand, who was full-blooded Irish, had a very bland palate that I inherited. There's nothing wrong with that. On St. Patrick's Day, sometimes we'll eat like what cabbage and was it corn? Was it corned beef for St. Patrick's Day? I don't know if you guys saw on St. Patrick's Day, I actually showed everyone my four-leaf clover that I actually found in like a patch of grass. Dilfer says if salmon was cheap, I would eat it every day. I'm not a salmon is all right, but I'm not that big of I'm not a seafood buff. I can eat chicken every day, or I can eat beef every day. No diddy, but seafood not so much. Dilfer says, how do you feel about canned sardines? I get weird looks from my family members, but sardines canned in olive oil with fresh steamed rice is amazing. Um, it's not my cup of tea, but if it's if it's with rice, I can eat it, but I wouldn't choose to eat it. But my cousins used to eat sardines all the time when we lived together, um, and it didn't seem that disgusting when she ate it. So, I've tried it like mixed in like fried rice and stuff like that, or in ramen. So it's okay to me. But I've never like gone out and actually bought sardines. It's like if someone else had it, then I would mix it with my food. Eric says I like salmon occasionally, but it has strong fishy taste when I season and marinate it right. That's true. Chase says, "What's three things you love about yourself?" That's random. And first of all, hello Chase. I don't think I've seen you in a stream before. If I have, sorry for my forgetfulness. What's three things I love about myself? Um, hmm, my athleticism, um, my resilience to things I've been through, and my skin. So Eric says I eat chicken and broccoli daily. There's no problem with that. Like, isn't that normally what they be telling? Like, what celebrities always say? Like, the ones who are like really into like nutrition and physical fitness, they always ask people like all these like MCU actors, um, like, oh, what do you guys eat to stay so fit? And they always like, oh, I just eat boiled chicken and whatever and like vegetables every day. Access, but that's my go-to. I sprinkle in seafood occasionally. Um, Delph says Costco rotisserie chicken is the way to go for meal prep. Rotisserie chicken at any supermarket is like a go-to. Like it's you don't because you can just buy it and that's an instant meal. Like just buy a rotisserie chicken and then you can just fix any sort of vegetable or starches with it, and it's a quick and easy meal for a family. Chase says, "Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Thank you. Thanks." So, guys, I'm about to end this. It is very late on my end. It's almost 1 o'clock, and I think we exhausted the political discussion because I talked about it early this afternoon, and then I extended it to this evening just because I knew it would be two different crowds that would be available in the afternoon and whom would be late. I mean, available in the evening. But I appreciate everyone for contributing. If you haven't already, guys, please like the videos, um, subscribe. It really helps me a lot because I'm about to be monetized. Last week I passed 1,000 subscribers, so the next checkpoint for me is hitting 10,000, and I know that's going to happen. But right now is to get monetized, and so then I can start doing super chats, and I'm going to start beefing up some of the production of my pre-recorded videos for you guys, like the one I it's like I just did a week ago, which is a sneak preview of like doing better production was my little George Lucas um, video when I talked about how he's disappointed in how Disney treated his franchise since he sold it to them. So I plan on doing more stuff like that. I also want to have some guests on the channel, some people overseas. I want to people to be able to see some of the people that I meet overseas and talk to. So plan on doing that. Also, the wife is planning on doing something. She planned on doing it last week, but there was a typhoon, and then earlier yesterday there was rain. In case you guys don't know, Filipinos hate the rain. They hate the rain, so they will not do anything when it's raining. So I have to find her when a day when it's not raining to do this video. But guys, thank you for tuning in. We can talk more about this stuff later. I Something that I did tell you guys I was going to do this week. I'm doing. I think I'm going to do either tomorrow or Sunday, but it's probably going to be tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is today now, Saturday. So it's either going to be this Saturday or Sunday. Something I've been planning on doing, which is I'm gonna show you the contents of my bug out bag. That so I plan on doing that. Um, but that's about it. And if anyone had any other questions or comments, once this video is uploaded, you can leave it there. You can leave the comments and questions here in the comment section when this video is uploaded. If you can't wait till that, you can reach out to me by email, and my socials are in the link description as well for Facebook and Instagram that are connected to this channel. Not my personal Facebook, but my Facebook for my that's connected to this channel, and my Instagram. You can reach me by those or by email if it's something outside of the context of something on this channel, or you just want to have like some questions about like business or traveling or anything like that. But yeah, please like and subscribe, hit notifications, share the videos. It means a lot. If you'd like to donate like Blondie did, she bought me some coffee yesterday. So if you guys want to be charitable like Blondie, I appreciate it all. Or you can contribute by hitting the Cash App or the Venmo. And thank you, Blondie, again. Um, J.A.C says host a party for your loyal fans in the Philippines. Oh yeah, I plan to. Like, I don't know exact. I can't tell from my analytics exactly how many people are watching from the Philippines. It's not a lot. This outside of the United States, my second largest group of watchers come from the United Kingdom. Um, and then there's a sprinkling of people from Canada, parts of Africa, and the Philippines. So I know some of my wife's friends watch. I think one of her, I think one of her homegirls boyfriend used like to watch my channel. I don't know if he still does. And I gave a big shout out to them when one of their holidays about a month ago. So I will probably do more content for my fans in the Philippines and to bring on more fans from the Philippines. And like I said, some of the guests that I plan on bringing onto the channel are going to be from there, from Philippines and Thailand. Some women, for some of the guys to appreciate. If they think this whole passport bro thing is a joke, they're gonna see that we're we know what we're doing. So all right, guys, that's gonna be it for me. Again, thank you for everybody contributing. Thank you for the folks who've donated to me within the last couple of weeks. Um, and thanks for the conversation. I'll be back later this Saturday. Uh, I plan on doing my bug out bag presentation. I'm gonna do it as a live stream because everyone told me, including my wife, that it would be better to do that as a live stream as opposed to as a pre-recorded video. So I'm going to do that live, and everyone can see everything that I'm packing in my bug out bag, except for a gun. I'm not showing that online. But other than that, that's it, guys. Take care, everyone. Thank you. And for everyone that's upset about the recent political situation, just realize that this is not over yet. All right. Thank you.